she'll help working people with unfair price rises caused by the war in the Middle East.
Well, Downing Street believes de-escalation is the best thing for the economy to prevent inflationary price rises.
It could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
Meanwhile, President Trump announces a 5-day ceasefire with Iran, saying that he will run the Strait of Hormuz with Tehran.
The Home Secretary admits anti-Semitism is on the rise in the UK in the wake of an arson attack on 4 Jewish volunteer ambulances.
The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground.
GB News can exclusively reveal this morning that nearly 1,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel in just 6 days.
The first men are being tested in a landmark UK trial that could transform how prostate cancer is detected.
A farmers' choir brought together by Jeremy Clarkson is striking a chord nationwide. 2 members will join us live to tell us how singing is tackling rural isolation.
And sport this morning, Bazball continues after England decide not to sack their coach after a disastrous Ashes. I'll continue. Spurs consider another change in their manager, and Thomas Tuchel brings back a player who walks out on England.
Well, the fine sunny weather couldn't last forever. Today we're going to see cloud, rain and colder air pushing its way through. Stick around to find out more.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. He's Tommy Cooper. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Now, would you say you are
A disastrous Ashes.
would you say you're a homebody?
Yes.
Or that you like to paint the town red?
Oh, I'm a party animal, me.
You paint your home red.
Yeah, no, I never go out.
No, you like being at home.
I love being at home, I do.
I like being at home.
I do.
But I feel like that's a new thing. I used to love going out and painting the town red, but no,
Yeah.
I love
Did
being
you?
at home. Yeah, I love being at home.
Do you know why? It's because you've now got your own home.
Yeah,
You've got
that's
your
what
own
it is.
place, and that makes all the difference.
And my dog.
Yeah,
What
see?
is it about being young, though? It's young people, generally, isn't it?
Not anymore.
Oh.
Not according to the Mail this morning. Gen Z want to stay at home, and it's OAPs that want to go out.
Hold on, so Gen Z is...
Under 27s.
Right, OK.
Yes. They want to stay at home. I think it's something like 64% of them would rather stay at home. So this is if you are 18 to 24 specifically.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're an OAP, you prefer heading out and being social.
Really?
Yep. But Cardiff is Britain's biggest homebody. 74% of people in Cardiff would prefer to stay at home than go on a night out. So there you go.
Oh.
Yeah. Almost a third of Britain said that if they had a free evening, they'd catch up on sleep.
So when you do go out, do you find that you're out and think, oh, I want to be home?
I love being at home.
Do you? Do you think that when you're out, though?
No, I enjoy being out when I'm out.
Yeah?
Like, yeah.
OK.
Yeah. What about you?
I do see lots of pictures of cocktails on your Instagram.
Yes. I'm always out.
That doesn't look like someone that's going, I'd really like to be at home right now.
I really want another
Maybe it's the
strawberry
best of
daiquiri.
both worlds, but I'm definitely going out less than I was.
OK, fine. It's because you've got Monty, that's the reason.
That's the reason.
Because you can't really see him.
Can I just voice some disappointment this morning?
Yeah.
Because, and no disrespect to this particular Minister of State who's going to be on the programme at 9 o'clock this morning, but it just says on my little list here where it says what's coming on, that at 9 o'clock we were interviewing Michael Shanks, who is a very famous Canadian actor who's done a lot of science fiction, and I'm a sci-fi geek.
Oh, so you're a big fan of
He was
Michael
in
Shanks.
Stargate and all this sort of stuff, which I was very, very excited to think, we're going to be talking to Michael Shanks.
Yeah.
And it turns out he's the Minister of State for Energy Security and Net Zero.
Oh, yes.
So, no
it's still the same fella, is it?
It'll be good to talk to him.
But it's not quite the same.
It's not the Michael Shanks I was
Shanks
hoping
had in
for.
mind.
There you
It's
go.
a shame.
Oh, sorry.
I know.
He works with Ed Miliband. So we can have a good conversation about that just after 9 o'clock.
Yes, we can. Right. In the meantime, let's talk about the Chancellor, should we? Rachel Reeves, who's going to unveil plans to protect households from rising prices linked to the war in Iran.
The government says it will give regulators stronger powers to tackle profiteering and stop companies exploiting the Middle East crisis.
The move follows an emergency COBRA meeting in Downing Street. The Chancellor expected to set out the plans, as you would expect, in Parliament.
But will it be enough to make a difference? Let's speak now to Fraser Myers, Deputy Editor of Spiked Online, who joins us in the studio. Morning, Fraser.
Good morning.
What options does the Chancellor have on the table, do you think?
Well, I think the options for her are quite limited because, as people will know, we're in a very, very different position in terms of the public finances than we were when Russia invaded Ukraine, for instance. So at that point, the then Prime Minister Liz Truss, remember her, she was able to basically give a kind of universal bailout to energy bills. So people will have felt a lot of squeeze at the time, but it could have been so much worse had the government not stepped in. Now, right now, Rachel Reeves doesn't have anywhere near as much money to play with. She's not able to borrow money at the same price. Borrowing costs have reached similar levels to the 2008 financial crisis. £1 in £10 of government spending is spent repaying the debt. To put that in context, that's around, I think actually we're spending more on repaying borrowing costs than we are on defence.
It's about £2 billion a week, isn't it?
It's just an absolutely astonishing figure. So what that means is that it looks like the government will unveil something a bit more targeted. So perhaps if you're on benefits or in receipt of welfare, then you might get some extra help. But there's probably not going to be a universal bailout.
Which is all right, fair enough. But why then, as she said, it's going to help out working Brits? But we're all working Brits, aren't we? I mean, clearly it's not going to help working Brits.
Well, her definition of working Brits shifts a lot. I mean, people will recall before the last election that tax rises on working people weren't going to rise, and then, our national insurance went up quite significantly, and various other taxes went up for a lot of people. The other thing she's going to set out, I mean, she's going to talk about doubling down on renewable energy, doubling down on nuclear power. Nuclear power is a very, very sensible thing. They've got some good plans, actually, to speed up and make the construction of power plants cheaper. But renewables, I think, are part of the reason we've got into this mess. And I think that we've been complacent about using our own oil and gas reserves, whether that's in the North Sea, whether that's fracking in Lancashire. That's something that that's an option that is there for the government to turn on at any point, and it has decided that it's not going to do that. It's going to double down on a failed policy.
And it's the opposite, isn't it, of what the Conservatives, Reform UK and even some Labour MPs are calling for, to head into the North Sea and get some new licences. Would it actually make a difference to the cost, though? Because the argument that the government is saying is because gas would be then sold on the international market, they would set the price. Wouldn't it make a difference to what we're...
Well, it would in the long term. I mean, perhaps it's not something that could be done today and immediately you're going to see your bills go down, but I'd hope that the government or whoever is in charge is thinking a little bit further ahead and thinking there could be a crisis like this around the corner. Certainly it does make it cheaper. That's why lots of people... Why is gas cheaper in Russia than it is elsewhere? It's because they produce lots of gas. Same with the United States. They produce lots of oil and gas, therefore they have a much cheaper price. It's a bit of a strange argument that it has to be sold on the international market. You have to when you're selling these things, you have to take into account the cost of transport as well. So actually, it is often cheaper to sell domestically, and it could bring bills down.
We're told everything is going to make it. We were told that renewables were going to make everything cheaper and all that, and it's not had any impact. And what is it? Like 40% of our energy comes from renewables now. I mean, it's a significant figure, and yet the bills are not going down.
The bill's not going down, and crucially, one reason for that is that the amount of electricity we produce, as we've gone on this transition to renewables, really it's just a transition away from producing electricity at all. We produce 20% less electricity than we did in the 2000s when a lot of these kind of climate measures came in. I think that's a huge problem that needs to be addressed. Nuclear is a good way of dealing with that, but it's not the full picture. I think we're going to have oil and gas for a long time. Other countries are taking the opposite approach. Rising powers like China and India are going fully they're embracing coal, oil, gas. We need to be thinking similarly, and we've tried this experiment now. We've actually run the renewables experiment for a good 15-20 years, and it's time to say it hasn't worked, and that's fair enough. We should do something. We should do what we know works.
Can we talk about 1,000 small boat migrants crossing the Channel in the past 6 days? It's the GB News exclusive this morning, and it comes as the French deal, our deal with the French, coming to an end at the end of this month. Shabana Mahmood, the Times is reporting this morning, is putting a new deal on hold because she would like new terms, essentially basing funding on the number of interceptions by the French. Is that a wise idea by the Home Secretary?
I think so. I think because it seems as if the French have been getting a lot of British money and not doing much for it. In fact, the percentage of migrants that have been intercepted has gone down. So I think it's only at 37% of migrants that are ever intercepted in France. You can understand why the French have no interest, really, in policing the border on our behalf. So it makes sense to tie it to a target. And it's good to see that someone like Shabana Mahmood is not just throwing money at this problem and expecting it to go away. It should be tied to results.
Yeah, pay as you go.
Absolutely.
Basically. Yeah, well, yeah, sensible. And let's see, if they don't do anything and they can't prove it, then they don't get any money.
OK.
Yeah.
Fraser, thank you. We'll see you in the next hour.
Thank you.
Right, 11 minutes past 6, Donald Trump says he will run the Strait of Hormuz with Iran after announcing a 5-day pause on striking energy infrastructure.
He claimed progress on a peace deal with the potential for joint control of the key oil route and a regime change.
But we'll see what happens. I think there's a very good chance we're going to end up in a deal. And so we're giving it 5 days, and then we're going to see where that takes us. And I would say at the end of this period, I think it could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
Well, it's not just that Tehran is denying the deal, they're denying any peace talks. So they're calling it fake news.
So is this really the beginning of the end of the war? Let's speak now to Republican commentator Nora Lee Notson, who's in the studio with us. Morning to you, Nora Lee.
Good morning.
What is going on here? Are there talks going on or are there not? One of the papers reporting that the US are in Pakistan for talks, but no Iranian counterpart has even showed up.
Well, clearly what we know is that not only the US, but the rest of the world want an off-ramp for this quagmire that we're in the Middle East. So there's indication that there are back-channel talks happening with Egypt, Saudi Arabia being involved, with the Speaker of the Parliament in Iran being involved, and potentially having the ability to create this off-ramp. I think the world is hoping that is the case because we are all in a big mess right now. There are 5 days for this sort of ceasefire. Clearly, the markets like it. We've seen a retracement in oil prices, and everybody's hoping there is an off-ramp. What's very important right now is that the objectives for the U.S. and Israel are aligned so that if there is this off-ramp, that it can be accomplished.
I just wonder if it's all complete nonsense, though, to be fair, because it was only a day or two ago Trump's talking about completely annihilating parts of Iran. Presumably someone said to him, if you do that, we go into a massive global crisis over oil prices. And so we're now being told there's peace talks which may end all of this. But so with no indication from Iran whatsoever that the new supreme leader or people directly underneath him have got any say in this whatsoever.
I think you raise a very valid question because we know war is not only fought with your military and all of your arsenal, but it's fought with your words and with your news and the narrative that is put out there. A lot of people question whether or not this is a bluff. We've seen 2 ships with 2,500 in the Navy being sent out there. So some people are wondering, is this a bluff? And then they're going to take over Harg Island. We don't know. But the world is hoping there is an off-ramp because this is debilitating, not only for the oil markets, but we see it for semiconductors with helium. We see it for farming, for food prices, with sulfur that we need for fertilizer.
Very interesting that we're hearing the idea of regime change being
Yes.
raised again, because that's gone quiet, hasn't it, for the past couple of weeks. But Trump saying last night there's now a very serious form of regime change that could happen in the Islamic Republic. Do you think that's likely?
I think it's going to be very difficult to have regime change unless everyone in the IRGC is on board. So I don't know how possible that is. But if there's enough pressure on Iran, it could potentially happen, but I think it's highly improbable.
We're just looking at pictures from Tel Aviv, where presumably there's been another strike there. So, I mean, if there is a ceasefire, I don't know when it's all going to officially kick in. But, I mean, it's also... It is the rhetoric which is important, but it's also very confusing. Trump now saying he's going to run the Strait of Hormuz with Tehran, and yet last week he was saying, I'm not going to have anything to do with the Strait of Hormuz. We don't need it. It's up to the rest of you to police that.
Well, as we hear from Iran, they see the Strait of Hormuz really as their leverage. They don't need nuclear weapons when they have the Strait of Hormuz and they have the world at their knees. Whether or not Trump's going to be able to run that, I think it's highly improbable given the response that we've seen from Iran. And that's why the world is really in turmoil right now, is that we see Iran has emerged more powerful than before this war has started, sadly.
How is this all going down back at home in the US? How is this going down with the MAGA base?
You know, I just came back from the US yesterday, and it's very fragmented. There are those who double down on Trump and MAGA, and there are those who have stepped away and said he's abandoned his promise for no new wars, no forever wars, and this is the biggest mess that they have ever seen in their lifetime. So people who have looked at the writing on the wall are very upset. And others have doubled down, and they hope we have a swift victory, but I think it's going to be unlikely with what we've seen so far.
All right. Norah Knotson, thank you very much indeed. It's good to see. I mean, the danger here is if it's not finished. Well, I mean, if you can come to a peaceful resolution and sort it all out, fine. But if we end up just going back to the status quo with Iran, we're no better off, are we?
Yeah,
what was it for?
Exactly.
Anyway, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Now, at 16 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Family members of a school caretaker killed by Valdo Caricane are due to give evidence to the Nottingham attacks inquiry. 65-year-old Ian Coates was fatally stabbed more than an hour after the students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, who were both just 19, were killed in the early hours of June the 13th, 2023.
A jury in California has ordered Bill Cosby to pay more than $14 million in damages to a former waitress who said he drugged and sexually assaulted her over 50 years ago. The woman said he gave her wine and a pill that left her unable to move after picking her up in a limousine in 1972. Cosby has denied the allegations.
At least 66 people have been killed in a military plane crash in Colombia. There were 125 on board the aircraft. Many were soldiers. The cause is under investigation, but the Defence Minister described it as a tragic accident.
Now let's get a check on the weather with Sophia Hill.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet across parts of the north, with colder air following behind. Let's take a look at the details. Southwestern parts of the country will remain largely dry, however it will be cloudy and increasingly breezy as the day goes on. Still on the mild side, with highs reaching the mid-teens. Further east, across southeast England and East Anglia, and we may hang on to some brightness from time to time, with highs possibly reaching 15 Celsius. For Wales, it will start dry, but rain will spread into northern parts throughout the afternoon, with winds also strengthening. Into the Midlands, and we will see some early brightness, but cloud will build throughout the day. Most will stay dry until after dark, with highs reaching the low teens. Northern England, though, will see an increasingly wet day, especially for parts of Cumbria, with some heavy rain developing here. Windy too, especially near Irish seacoast and over the hills. Moving up to Scotland, and morning rain will give way to a mix of sunshine and blustery showers. Mild initially, but colder later, with the showers turning increasingly wintry. Northern Ireland will also turn colder later in the day, with spells of rain moving across the country. Some brightness developing in between rain, with brisk winds throughout. The colder conditions will then begin to sink southward this evening as the rain moves towards the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Still to come, we're going to talk about the Home Secretary's comments that anti-Semitism is on the rise. That comes after that arson attack at Golders Green in London. We'll tell you more in a moment.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition, from 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, it's 6:23 and the Prime Minister, well, we know, did it yesterday, condemned what he called a deeply shocking anti-Semitic arson attack in North London.
4 ambulances belonging to a Jewish community charity in Golders Green were set alight and loud explosions were heard as gas cylinders, oxygen tanks inside the ambulances, ignited.
Well, the Metropolitan Police have announced they are now ramping up protections for the Jewish community. And they'll see additional highly visible firearms patrols, an additional 264 officers alongside neighbouring officers to deploy vulnerable locations.
Operation Servata deployments, uniformed and plain clothes across key sites and high footfall areas, and use of drones.
Well, Let's talk to the co-founder of GPS Network and Victims of Antisemitism, Jeremy Woodliff, and development manager at Christians United for Israel, UK, Alistair Kirk. Good to see you both this morning. Jeremy, can I start with you in all of this? I know you experienced this attack. I mean, you were able to hear it from where you live the other night, yesterday morning. Where does this leave us in the country when everyone's condemning it politically, but the Home Secretary is admitting anti-Semitism is on the rise?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us on the show. And obviously, the Jewish community is not happy with the situation. And we have seen it coming for a very long time. But we are where we are, and measures need to be taken. Now, we have heard all the right words from all the right people for oh so long. Now, as many in the community are saying, we want to see outcomes. So we're looking at new cohesion reports, new investigations, and we're looking at that coming back in the autumn, and we're looking then to see what's going to happen from there on. I'm sorry, how many people are going to be attacked between now and then? This is a situation that isn't just about terrorism. It's about the atmosphere of hating Jews being rife across the whole of the UK.
Alistair, as the Home Secretary was saying yesterday, the oldest hatred is rising again. And as Jeremy was just pointing out, all the right words are being said, and we're hearing more about additional funding. But how do we actually tackle the deep-rooted issue that is the oldest hatred?
Well, absolutely. I mean, a nation that cannot or will not protect its Jews is heading down a very dangerous path. And you're absolutely right, it's not just about words. Action is needed to be taken, and I think there are things we do need to get, to the root of the problem. We have allowed in this nation an environment of toxicity towards the Jewish people and towards Israel. Jews have been demonized, scapegoated, libeled. It is an ancient, anti-Semitism is an age-old problem, but it mutates, it evolves, and we have to look at anti-Semitism, I believe, in the present climate. If you cannot define anti-Semitism, how are you able to actually tackle it?
What's your role as a Christian for Israel? I wonder how that ties in. Because I was slightly intrigued by the fact that you said hatred for Israel. Now, I'm not in any way saying that that's justified, but in terms of dislike for countries, for governments and all the rest of it, people are entitled to disagree. And what concerns me about all of this is people seem to be saying, if you are Jewish or supporting Jewish people, then you are somehow linked with the Israeli government, which, of course, is clearly nonsense.
Well, yes, of course, people are entitled to their views regarding the state of Israel. But so often we see, and especially in my work, we see actually attitudes towards Israel as a cloak for anti-Semitism. They use all the buzzwords anti-Zionism, but what we see on the streets in these protests, what we see at university campuses, when we hear chants of, from the river to the sea, when we hear of intifada, calls for intifada, they're calling for the wiping out of the Jewish people. So we have to call it out for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, has the government failed to protect Jewish communities in the sense that we have seen these protests for the last 2.5 years, where we're hearing chants of globalise the intifada, where we're seeing hateful words on placards? Has that directly or indirectly led to what we saw yesterday in Golders Green?
I think, excuse me, it's part of the picture. The government, I think, is on board, but it does it in its own way. And the consequences so far clearly are not good enough. British people who happen to be Jewish are 8 times more likely to be attacked on racial, ethnic, religious grounds than the next demographic. Jews are only 1 in 26 allegations of anti-Jewish racism result in a charge or a summons. Gosh. Jewish people in this country have lost faith, not in their religion, but in the government's ability to control this rampant form of racism that would probably not be for any other category. And we know there are systemic challenges that the government itself has in its own party, as do others. It's a challenge for British people as well, because we're all Brits. We're all in this together. And tolerating this or doing nothing about it, ignoring this fact, has led us to where we are. So the blame, I'm sorry to say, is historic, but it is ramped up. And the attacks against us are coordinated. This is not an accident. This is not just because of the war in Gaza. The rise in anti-Semitism has been going on for a very long time, and now we are where we are.
Right. Gents, it's good to talk to you this morning. I'm sorry we're out of time, but thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for joining us.
I think that what this says more than anything else is that for those of us who aren't Jewish and maybe have no religion or maybe have another religion, that we need to actually call it out.
Yeah.
You've got to call it out if you see it or if you're aware. You've got to call it out. It's totally unacceptable. It would be unacceptable for anybody of any religion or any to be picked on and traumatised in this sort of way.
And maybe check on your Jewish friends.
Yeah.
Now would be the time, wouldn't
It just
More
seems
than ever.
utterly mad in this day and age. Anyway, I think this is probably the perfect time, actually, for a little daily reflection.
The GB News Daily Reflection.
Hi, my name is Pat Allerton and I'm a vicar in the Church of England. You know, when I was growing up, and still today, my mum had the most enormous fear of flying, to the extent that the few times I've been on a plane with her, she had to take Valium, and even back in the day before the rules changed, she was allowed to go and visit the captain in the cockpit, all to calm her nerves, calm her fears. Now, fear of death is perhaps the most human fear to have, because ultimately, who knows what happens next? But the Christian faith, the Christian hope, is that we know, because of the resurrection of Jesus, that ultimately death is not the end. Jesus in his ministry on earth had some great friends, and one of them was a guy called Lazarus, who was the brother of Mary and Martha. Now, he died, and Jesus, for some reason, left him dead and buried for 4 days before going to visit the sisters. And when he did, he comforted them by saying these words, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me will live, even though they die." And without further ado, he went out to the tomb and commanded, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus came out, hopping, I imagine, because he was bundled together in his grave clothes. But he came back to life. And if you like, that is a picture of the future for all who put their trust in Jesus Christ today. That one day, when God calls time on all of creation, on this age, those who believe and trust in Jesus will hear his voice calling to them, saying, "Come out of the grave and come into a beautiful and eternal future."
Story of Lazarus giving us some hope there on this Tuesday morning, which I think we need now more than ever, don't we?
Yes, there's a lot to be said for hope at the moment, even hope we don't understand.
Seeing light in the darkness. It's always there if you look for it.
Yes, I think we all need a bit of that. You might need that if you're travelling this morning, I have to say.
Oh, yes.
The motorway was a nightmare this morning. They keep closing the M1.
He sent me a photo at 4:30 this morning of just red lights.
Yes, just saying, just in case I'm slightly late this morning.
No. What a nightmare.
Anyway, look, if you are travelling to work or school this morning, here's your traffic and travel update.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M8, junction 23 remains closed westbound due to essential overnight roadworks, which are designed to improve driver safety and traffic flow. Meanwhile, on the A55 over Britannia Bridge, a reduced speed limit of 30 miles per hour is in place in both directions until further notice due to ongoing maintenance efforts. On the trains, Avanti West Coast is experiencing major disruption at Glasgow Central Station, while cross-country services face significant issues affecting various routes, so please allow extra travel time and check updates before you leave. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This is you, doll.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Do stay with us. Still to come, England's exile returns. We're going to have that with Paul Coy next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello, everyone. Patrick Christie is here. GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Every week there are stories that shape the national conversation.
We'll be discussing that.
And on Saturday Morning Live, we break them down.
Is that true? This is fascinating, isn't it?
The politics, the headlines, the debates everyone's talking about.
And the questions that you want answered.
Do you think that was a legitimate attack for him to make?
What led you to set up this fantastic movement?
You know what? It's a great question, Olivia.
So what are you waiting for?
Your weekend starts here. Saturdays at 10 a.m, only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What he's talking about is food, burgers.
Burgers,
and
yeah.
nuggets.
And all,
Nuggets.
Nuggets.
She's gone all Essex.
Yeah, we're having fun today, aren't we? Anyway, got some very exciting news for you. We're thrilled to announce that GB News Breakfast has once again been nominated for Best News Programme at the Trick Awards.
Yes, we've won the past 3 years, and of course we can't do it without you, our incredibly loyal viewers and listeners. But, of course, we need you to vote again. If you think we should win,
please.
It's entirely up to you. You can scan the QR code which is on your screen right now, or you can go to poll-trick.org.uk. And thank you.
Thank you so much. It's sports time. Paul Costello with us.
I've looked at... I think we should win again.
I think we should.
Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you're allowed
I'm
to
not
say.
being funny, but I just think we should.
Yeah.
Well,
Clean
I
sweep.
think it'd be nice.
I mean, I'd be a bit worried if you thought we shouldn't.
That's true, yeah. I'm not just saying it because I'm a company man, but I mean it. I really do mean it.
Well, let's hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Little Bazball for you.
Oh, yeah.
Bazball, we know what Bazball is, don't we?
Yes, we do. It's rubbish is what it is.
Yeah, well, it's proved
doesn't
out that
work.
way.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Brendan McCullum, coach of England cricket, and the whole idea, it's supposed to be very entertaining, and then it's like you just go out and you play with no fear, and the ball comes down and you just whack it and just play like you don't have a care in the world.
That's gone well so far.
Yeah, it hasn't gone very well because it showed that they do have a care in the world, because it really hasn't worked out very well. So anyway, there was a review by the ECB, and basically looking back on the Ashes and thinking, why did it go wrong? What was the problem? What do we do? Do we sack Brendan McCullum, Baz? And also, do we move on and just redo the whole thing? And they decided, no, we're going to stick with it. Ben Stokes will stay as captain. But you get these things, it's like changes need to be made, needs to be better preparation, because there was moans about they're not playing enough games before the Ashes. McCullum and Stokes need to align, they need to have... It's just stuff. It's like, well, you might as well just put, you know what? They need to win.
Yes.
That would make everything fine. So
it's gone really, really badly. We've shamed the nation.
Yes.
So let's do absolutely nothing about it.
But let's try a little bit harder. And it's like, well, drinking at night, may have a midnight curfew. So there need to be higher standards expected on and off the field. I mean, anybody could have written this stuff. Yeah. So anyway, things are going to stay the same. They'll be there for the next Ashes. So just play better. You know, that's it. Just play better cricket.
Yeah.
Now, talking about trouble...
Should we talk about Spurs?
Igor
Tudor, yes. Yeah. Now, Igor... It was very sad, actually, because after the game... Igor did not do the press conference, and he'd lost his dad. He'd found out straight after the game that his father had passed away. So now you're in a situation where it was the question of, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? But obviously, you know, under those circumstances, you can't then go up and then fire the man. It's just not good. But where Spurs are going to go, because as we know, Spurs are in all sorts of trouble, and no matter what anybody says, Spurs would be the favourite, I think, to go down and be relegated. And it's an awful, awful state of affairs. We're talking the 7th richest football team in the world. And also, there's, I mean, this is the weird thing, there's Arsenal supporters that are actually going, you know what, this is typical. Those that are thinking, oh, yeah, we'd love to see Spurs go down, you know, they're rivals. But then you get no North London derby, would you? What would you do then? And also the fact that they're saying that this would be such a big story, it would overshadow us winning the title. So even though Spurs are bad, they would still overshadow it. But anyway, it really doesn't look very good. There's talk about Roberto De Zerbi, the manager who was manager at Brighton and has just left Marseille, that maybe he'll come in. But then again, if you're a manager, do you want relegation on your CV, and do you think you're good enough to go in and say, right, in these next 6 or 7 games, I can turn the thing around? So it's a really tricky situation.
It's a poison chalice, isn't it?
It really is.
Igor wasn't a permanent job, was it?
That's right.
So they could move him without it looking too bad.
They could, but it was supposed to be until the end of the season. But then again, he hasn't done very well. But is it him? Is it the players? It's a messy situation, and it's a big worry for everyone. Especially me.
Especially you.
All right. You, Ellie.
Fingers crossed.
All right. We'll see you a little later.
I'm not going to talk about Spurs again for the rest of the show. Is that OK?
Yeah, fine.
We'll both end up in tears.
Yeah.
But we won't cry at this, will we? This is lovely news.
No, it's the giveaway. It's our biggest ever this year so far. It's worth £92,000, I think. Here are all the details.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000, and it could be all yours in our very latest Great British Giveaway. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. You can even drive it on your existing driving licence. Plus, it comfortably sleeps 4 people. Make sure you don't miss out on the biggest prize package of the year so far. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network public access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers this morning with Charlie and Chloe. But first up, here's your forecast across Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A mixed picture weather-wise across southern Europe through tomorrow. We do have some showery rain affecting Greece. None of that looks especially heavy, and it is clearing away. Meanwhile, towards Italy, whilst tomorrow's looking largely dry, Storm Deborah is going to arrive overnight and into Thursday, bringing heavy rain, strong winds, even some significant mountain snow. Meanwhile, towards the Canaries and Madeira, well, it's been very unsettled recently. A shift in the wind direction does mean parts towards the southwest will be a bit more sheltered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
To like that medals awarded to our heroes, our boys in First World War, are being bought and melted down by scrap dealers because of the rising price of silver. Now, antique shop War & Son have launched a campaign to save the medals from the melting pot, and they've already rescued more than 160. Now, joining me now is Stephen Noir, who is director of War & Son. Stephen, if I can use your first name, good afternoon to you. This is a very sad story, that these medals are being sold down. They are part of our history.
Indeed, Andrew. Thanks so much for bringing focus to this campaign, first of all. I do think that overwhelming kind of emotion is sadness. It's not an anger aimed at anyone. I think that in these times, economic times, it's we really have to try and keep the education going. We really have to work out what our priorities are. And I think this just comes from, sadly, a lack of awareness and something that, shouldn't be happening, that you can kind of understand the reasons but underpinning why it is happening. So really, with the campaign that we're putting together isn't a massive departure from what we do as a business anyway. But if we could just get across to the public that it's the stories behind each medal. Yes, it's an ounce of silver or just over an ounce of silver, but it's a medal that's named on the edge of the medal. It's named to the rim. And you can research these stories. So each one is a person, each one is a story. And I think so if they end up in the smelting pot, they disappear forever and just become a name possibly on a memorial. And that sacrifice is lost forever. And it just needn't happen as far as we're concerned. So that's why we've committed our pledge.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
6:48, time for the front pages now.
And the front page of the Daily Mail says that Trump announces 5-day ceasefire as Tehran denies talks. The headline is Trump blinks first.
The Times says Trump eases the threat on destroying Iran's power infrastructure, raising hopes of reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
The Guardian says Iran denies talks as the US extends the Hormuz deadline.
Telegraph says Trump plans to run the strait with the Ayatollah. Which is interesting because I don't think he's an Ayatollah yet.
He's a mid-level cleric, isn't he?
Yes, which isn't quite the same.
Not got quite the same ring to it.
No. Right, so we have a look through some of those with former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley and political commentator Chloe Dobbs. Good morning, you two. We'll start with that one then, Charlie, should we? On the Telegraph. I was going to run the straight with the Ayatollah who's not an Ayatollah.
Yes, the mid-level cleric doesn't quite have the same sort of weight behind it, does it?
No.
Strike the fear into people.
I'm sure he will become an Ayatollah at some point very soon.
Well, you know, and this could be the chap that Donald Trump has identified as the person that could end up running Iran and someone that he could end up doing a deal with. And I think this is the crux of it, is it's getting a deal. And we know Donald Trump is a businessman, that's what he's about. And so when you see the oil prices fluctuate erratically as they have done, I think he's now obviously trying to get control of that market by saying, right, we're not going to bomb Iran for the next 5 days. It's going to be a bit of a pause on that. But he's still going to run it. He's going to run the Strait of Hormuz to make sure that actually the shipping...
the Strait of Hormuz, he said he didn't need to have anything to do with because America don't use it.
And this is the problem that I think, you know, we're facing. Even if, like me, you are totally against the Iranian regime and you want to see the back end of them and you want to see a new regime in place, because of all the atrocities that they've committed out, not least of all against their own people, there has to be some sort of coherent strategy going forward. And I just think when you are a president that said you weren't going to get involved in international wars, you've now got involved into an international war, you're not receiving the support of your base as you would hope. I think he's now trying to just see an end game in sight. In order to try and, I think, win back the support that he might have lost along the way. Where strategically things, I don't think, have been as simple as I think he thought or might have been told, that just by committing airstrikes in Iran that he could deliver his aims.
Is there a coherent strategy in place, though, Chloe, when President Trump is talking about running the strait with Iran, but at the same time still talking about the serious form of regime change that he thinks he can bring about?
I'm not entirely sure if it's just a case of him not wanting to show his cards or if he has genuinely no idea what the end game is. Of course, we've had various Ayatollahs taken out one by one, and they ended up, of course, after one was taken out, ending up with one considered to be even more extreme, which wasn't really a good result. I think Trump he's going to be keen to see an end to this, as Charlie had, and he might be more willing to get out of there without regime change. But of course, many of the Iranians on the ground, they're absolutely desperate to bring in, for example, Reza Pahlavi as an interim. They're sort of staying at home, getting their forces together, hoping that they're going to have the power to overtake the regime when the time is right. And I think where you're potentially going to see some arguments is between Israel and the US as to when they end this war, because Israel are going to be very keen to completely finish off the IRGC, whereas US might be more keen to get out quicker.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Chloe, can we have a look at the Times and our migrant agreement with France, which is coming to an end, and the Home Secretary is playing, to be fair to her, she's playing a little bit hardball on renewing it.
I mean, finally, it's almost... You think, why haven't they thought of this before? I mean, when they made the deal in the first place, it was crazy that we were handing these huge sums of money to France. I think we've given them almost £1 billion to stop the boats, and the percentage that they are stopping has gone down from 50% of the boats before the deal to now 37%. And I think people really feel like we've just been taken for fools by the French and that they've just pocketed our money. And so it's been obvious for a long time that this needs to be tied to performance, and I'm very glad to see that she is now doing that. But, I mean, the proof will be in the pudding. Does she actually manage to agree a decent deal with the French, or will the French say, well, if you want it to be tied to performance, you're going to have to hand us an extortionate amount of money? I mean, one thing that Brexit taught us is that when it comes to negotiating with our counterparts in the EU, they don't exactly, handle us lightly.
Yeah. I mean, Shabana Mahmood is talking about linking funding to interceptions, but interceptions aren't blocking the boats, are they? It just means you might physically stop that one boat. It doesn't stop them walking up the coast and trying again 20 minutes later.
Well, exactly. And, they have to do a darn sight more than just what they did ahead of Emmanuel Macron's visit, where we saw officials really step up, I think, preventing those boats leave the shores in the first place, rather than just intercepting them in the channel. They just seem to be asleep at the wheel, taking our money, hard-working taxpayers' money, going all the way across to France, who don't appear to be upholding their end of the bargain, where you're only intercepting and preventing a third of those small boat crossings. That's not good enough. But that's not just good enough for the UK and for the UK taxpayer. It's not good enough for the people that are crossing, the people that are coming into France from mainland Europe, even before they get to Calais. So, you know, France really does need to step up. It is a problem for them and for mainland Europe as much as it is us. But, you know, people won't be happy to see even more money going to France.
OK, you two. Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you later.
Let's have a look at the weather with Sophia Hill.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet across parts of the north, with colder air following behind. Let's take a look at the details. Southwestern parts of the country will remain largely dry, however it will be cloudy and increasingly breezy as the day goes on. Still on the mild side, with highs reaching the mid-teens. Further east, across southeast England and East Anglia, and we may hang on to some brightness from time to time, with highs possibly reaching 15 Celsius. For Wales, it will start dry, but rain will spread into northern parts throughout the afternoon, with winds also strengthening. Into the Midlands, and we will see some early brightness, but cloud will build throughout the day. Most will stay dry until after dark, with highs reaching the low teens. Northern England, though, will see an increasingly wet day, especially for parts of Cumbria, with some heavy rain developing here. Windy too, especially near Irish sea coasts and over the hills. Moving up to Scotland, and morning rain will give way to a mix of sunshine and blustery showers. Mild initially, but colder later, with the showers turning increasingly wintry. Northern Ireland will also turn colder later in the day, with spells of rain moving across the country. Some brightness developing in between rain, with brisk winds throughout. The colder conditions will then begin to sink southward this evening as the rain moves towards the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 motorway is closed westbound at junction 23 due to essential overnight roadworks. On the A55, both directions across Britannia Bridge have a temporary speed limit of 30 miles per hour until further notice for safety reasons. In Birmingham, the M6 southbound between junction 8 and junction 6 faces 30-minute delays due to heavy congestion, expected to ease after 7:30 this morning. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast reports major disruption at Glasgow Central, and Cross Country is experiencing major disruption on some routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good morning. The Chancellor lays out a plan to protect Britons from rising costs.
Yes, Rachel Reeves says she'll help working people with unfair price rises caused by the war in the Middle East.
Downing Street believes de-escalation is the best thing for the economy to prevent inflationary price rises.
It could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
Well, meanwhile, President Trump announces a 5-day ceasefire with Iran, saying he'll run the Strait of Hormuz with Tehran.
The Home Secretary admits anti-Semitism is on the rise in the UK in the wake of an arson attack on 4 Jewish volunteer ambulances. We're going to debate this hour whether the government really has taken a hold of the problem.
The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground.
Elsewhere today, GB News can exclusively reveal that nearly 1,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel in just 6 days.
We're going to tell you more about the first men being tested in a landmark trial that could transform how prostate cancer is detected.
Farmers Choir, brought together by Jeremy Clarkson, is striking a chord nationwide. 2 members are going to join us later on this morning to tell us how singing is tackling rural isolation.
I think I might have to put a Spurs choir together. Baseball continues after England decide not to sack their coach after what was a disastrous Ashes. Spurs consider another change in manager, and Thomas Tuchel brings back a player who, it's him, walked out on England.
Well, the fine sunny weather couldn't last forever. Today we're going to see cloud, rain and colder air pushing its way through. Stick around to find out more.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. I'm so excited to talk to this farmers' choir.
Are you?
I love a choir.
Well, it's a duet we're having.
Oh, we're having 2 members of said choir, but it's the farmers' choir put together by Jeremy Clarkson. Choirs always make me cry.
Do they?
Yeah. Why? Just all the voices coming together. I'm going to go now.
Oh, look, you...
All the voices
no.
coming together, and then... and then you can see how much it means to them all. It's all too much. Even then, that little clip that we play, I'm like...
You are actually tearing up.
I know, it's pathetic.
What's wrong with you?
There's something about the music and the people.
Oh, I love this. Keeps talking about the choirs.
Do you guys like choirs?
Well, I was at in church. They did a Stainer's crucifixion on Sunday, and it was just amateurs from the church, and their chorus was amazing. I mean, it was like I sat there with my eyes shut.
Give you goosebumps?
It was like being at a proper concert thing.
Wow.
It was they were really good, and the vicar's just sort of organised it herself, and she's been brilliant.
There you go.
I'm too cynical for a choir.
You don't like a choir, do you?
I know. know it's. Oh, it's.
I reckon it'd be good for the song.
Oh,
You'd love it.
I just get a subject and go, bloody, let's put them together. Let's make a choir. Let's do a choir. And
it's all, one of those.
I don't allow myself, Ellie. I find myself too cynical when I see the choir. Oh, is it going to be a choir?
I think if we popped you in the middle of a choir and we said, right.
Do you think so? Do you think that'll turn me around?
I think you'd feel really upbeat afterwards.
OK.
Is everyone singing together, don't you think?
I tell you what, if I was in the middle of a choir, then you'd really cry.
Have you got no singing voice at all?
I've got a beautiful singing voice.
Have you?
I think I do the descant.
Oh,
really?
Yes.
What was the descant?
That was a recorder, wasn't it?
No, that wasn't.
That's the higher bit, isn't it?
That was the higher bit. You kind of like in the carols, and then you'd sing another bit on top of that. I remember that from primary school.
Yeah, I was trying to do that at the GB News Carol concert. It wasn't going very well.
Did it not really well?
A blend with Camilla Tominey.
Oh my goodness me!
I think she was saying she was an alto, and I was like, that's fine. I'll do the descant, but it didn't quite work out.
Oh wow!
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Did you try then? What, just on the hoof?
Yeah, on the hoof.
Wow.
Well, it's no good without a rehearsal. Cause you know,
I know.
How do you know where you're going?
I didn't know where I was going.
I always felt sorry for the kid at school, though, when the music teacher would say, yeah, you, John, in the back, can you just mouth the words? But don't make any noise. I remember him. I feel so sorry for him.
We were always told, because I wasn't in a choir at school, not that I can sing, I was just there for the vibes, but we were just told you just have to say rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you don't know the words, because it looks like you're saying anything.
What you don't know is Ellie sings a lot in the commercial breaks.
About rhubarbs.
Clearly, she likes to harmonise. It's all I can say.
It doesn't sound good, though, does it?
No.
Anyway.
Makes
but
us
the
cry.
enthusiasm makes up for it.
Every now and then there's a bit that you do that's actually quite good, but
Thank you.
Most of the time, it's not.
All the right notes, just not necessarily in the right order.
Very good, Jinx.
Right,
Thank you.
OK. Right, let's have a look at the Chancellor, should we? We are waiting for the Lib Dems, but that line isn't quite up yet, so we'll talk to the Lib Dems in a moment. But the Chancellor, is she clear now? Oh, she's good to go. All right, there you go. Right, it is Lisa Smart, who's Lib Dem MP for Hazel Grove, who joins us now. Good morning to you. I'm glad we've got that line up and running. Look, what are we to do about where we are heading as a country at the moment, Lisa Smart, do you think? Because we're involved and not involved in a conflict in Iran, where we seem to be... I don't know what our position is. It's all very confusing. We are tied up with growing levels of anti-Semitism in this country, which is, I guess, in some ways related to what we're seeing in Iran and what we're seeing in Gaza and elsewhere. And we're in a financial crisis, partly led by what we're seeing in other parts of the world as well. I mean, it just seems a complete and utter mess at the moment.
So I absolutely agree with you that a lot of what we see on the news is a mess, and I get why my constituents can feel quite powerless. But one of the great things about our country, the brilliant things about our democracy, is actually the people have the power. We've got local elections coming up on the first Thursday in May across large parts of England, and that puts real power directly in the hands of voters and directly in the hands of communities. And there's a real opportunity to push back against some of the Trump-style chaos and division that we see parties like Reform and indeed the Conservatives trying to import over from the US. As the Liberal Democrats, we're really excited about the opportunity that these elections present. We are coming off the back of 7 clear years of strength and of growing our council base. We run more councils than the Conservatives. We won more local council by-elections than any other party in the country last year. And we're really up for the fight. We think we can be brilliant local champions representing our communities, and I can't wait for the campaign to get cracking.
It's really good to see you this morning, Lisa Smart, because we were quite surprised last week in PMQs when Sir Ed Davey, who we've spoken to a number of times on this programme, the two of us, took the opportunity to criticise this channel. He actually called on Ofcom to censor GB News, and we were surprised by that because we speak to the Lib Dems all the time. Whenever you have a media round, whenever you have anything like today, you want to discuss local elections, we will have you on the programme and we will chat to you. In fact, we were the only national broadcaster to cover your spring conference. So we were very surprised by that criticism, but it's fantastic to see you. So do you not agree with your leader, Sir Ed Davey, that Ofcom needs to censor us as a channel?
So I'm always delighted to accept the invitation from GB News. It's lovely to talk to you this morning, and I very much enjoyed speaking with Camilla when I was at our spring conference the weekend before last. I don't think it's about any individual presenters. What Ed was talking about, though, is to make sure that there's balance. And I think if you look at the presenter roster, there are some sitting Reform politicians. I think it's only right that Ofcom should have a look. Even Andrew Neil, who was one of the people putting together GB News, has said it looks a little bit like becoming the Reform channel. And I think we should have balance in our broadcasting, and it's only right that Ofcom take a look at that.
I think Andrew Neil may have a little bit of an axe to grind, to be perfectly fair. But I mean, you know, when you come on this show, and we have to be fair, I think we have Daisy Cooper on more than anybody else.
Yeah.
From your party. Do you not think we provide a balanced outlook on this show?
So I think it's great that you have lots of Lib Dem politicians on, and I think it's good that you have a range of people on. I think looking at the presenter roster, I think having Nigel Farage as a presenter, having Lee Anderson as a presenter, I think sends a message about the sort of politics that might feel comfortable on GB News. I'm really genuinely pleased to be talking to you this morning about how excited we are about the local elections. I think you're asking perfectly fair questions, and I very much enjoyed the couple of conversations I've had with Camilla. But I think looking at the presenter roster, looking at the sort of views that seem to get more of a hearing than others on GB News, I think Ofcom taking a look to make sure that there is balance so that your viewers can be thoroughly informed, I think is absolutely the right thing.
Look, we're expecting to hear from the Chancellor today. She's going to set out how she's going to try and protect working people against rising bills with energy, petrol pumps, mortgages and the like in the wake of the war in the Middle East. What can be done? What would you like to see done to try and ease the burden on British households? Do we need to U-turn on new oil and gas licences in the North Sea? Do we need to start becoming more reliant on our own energy?
So I absolutely understand why lots of householders will be really worried. Energy bills are already really high, and they're seeing the oil price going up because, in large part, because of Donald Trump's unilateral and, frankly, illegal action in Iran. That's driving the price of a barrel of oil up, and that has an impact on energy costs here. And that's because energy costs are set internationally, and so actually more drilling in the North Sea wouldn't have an impact in the short term. What would have an impact, though, is in the UK if we decoupled the gas price from the energy price, meaning that we can invest more in clean energy and people can pay less for their energy if it comes from things like tidal power, wind power, or wonderful hydropower like in Stockport Hydro, which is 2 corkscrews in the River Goy in my Hazel Grove constituency. People should be able to make that choice and decouple those prices, because when the price cap rises, people will understandably be worried. Any intervention we see from the Chancellor today should, in our view, be absolutely focused on those who are most impacted by this. And just in terms of the conflict in Iran, the only solutions to anything like this has got to be diplomatic, not military.
OK, Lisa Smart, we do have to leave it there, but appreciate your time.
You're always very welcome here on GB News.
Yes, indeed, you are. Right, let's talk to Fraser Myers, Deputy Editor of Spiked Online. Look, in terms of what the Chancellor's going to do, I mean, she's got her hands tied.
Absolutely.
Very, very much so.
Yeah, so, of course, the problem is being caused by an external event, by the war in Iran, which is not within the government's control. But, you know, governments do need to be prepared for these things. You know, history happens, which is outside of the United Kingdom's control. And you'd think that after the Ukraine debacle, we would have been a bit more resilient, that we might have been prepared for another energy shock. But unfortunately, we're not. It turns out that we've carried on with the same failed policies that mean that we're paying extraordinary amounts for energy. Even before this crisis, we had the highest industrial electricity prices in the developed world. The Labour Party wanted to carry on with many of those policies. The Lib Dems, who you just spoke to, also are very keen on those policies. It's worth going back, actually, to their time in coalition. There's a sort of semi-viral video of Nick Clegg that goes around from time to time where he says there's no point in building any nuclear power stations because they won't come online until 2020 Well, most of us were planning. That would have been pretty handy, and most of us were planning to be alive, in 2020, and I'm planning to be alive in 10 years' time as well. So talk about short-termism, and also, you know, the Lib Dems have been very keen on net zero. Actually, they were the first party to put it in a manifesto.
What about this decoupling that they talk about of renewables to gas and oil?
Well, I think it's it's a bit of a red herring. It's worth saying that, you know, the gas price does go up. Of course it does. It's very volatile. The oil price similarly volatile. But that is only about 40% of your energy bill. It sets the wholesale price, which is about 40% of your energy bill. The other costs that you're paying for are what they call policy costs, and that is partly to subsidise wind farms and things like that, particularly when they don't produce enough electricity. So even if they don't produce enough electricity, the wind farm operator still gets paid. Even if the wind blows too much, the wind farms have to be turned off, and they still get paid for that as well. You're also paying for grid upgrades, some of which would be necessary anyway, but some of which are needed because of the complications that additional renewables add to the energy mix, because it means that we're constantly having to rebalance the grid all of the time because the amount of energy they're producing is unpredictable. Whereas if you take something like nuclear energy or oil and gas or coal, it's predictable how much energy that can produce because you decide as the producer.
Fraser, we've only got a minute with you, but just wanted to touch on this GB News exclusive that 1,000 people have crossed the Channel in the past 6 days because we have seen slightly better weather, haven't we? This comes as the deal with the French that we currently have is coming to an end at the end of this month. Shabana Mahmood looking at a new deal, but she's holding off because she's looking at new terms, including looking at basing the funding on the level of interceptions. Is that a welcome idea from the Secretary?
I think that's the right approach. I think that the government's general approach of looking to France or looking to do international deals as a way to solve this crisis has been exposed as a spectacular failure in general. I mean, the fact that 1,000 migrants have crossed in such a short period of time is really a damning indictment of that. It's a damning indictment of their claim to have smashed the gangs as well, of course. You know, really this comes down to domestic policy. The fact is that if you come to Britain, the chances are you're not going to be deported. Even if you commit a very serious crime, you probably won't be deported. You know, recently this week, a paedophile was allowed to stay in Britain because he didn't own up to being a paedophile when he arrived, but a judge deemed that it was an honest mistake for him not to have declared that, and so he can stay. You know, until the laws around things like that are changed, until we look at the Human Rights Act and the European Convention of Human Rights, this issue is not going to change and people are going to keep coming.
OK. Fraser, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Fraser.
Thank you.
Now, Donald Trump has said he will run the Strait of Hormuz with Iran after announcing a 5-day pause on striking energy infrastructure.
He claimed that progress on a peace deal with the potential for joint control of the key oil route and a regime change.
But we'll see what happens. I think there's a very good chance we're going to end up in a deal. And so we're giving it 5 days, and then we're going to see where that takes us. And I would say at the end of this period, I think it could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
Now, what makes it all a bit confusing is Tehran have not just denied a deal, they've denied any peace talks at all, saying it's fake news.
Yeah, one of the papers this morning reported that Steve Witkoff is in Pakistan ready for those talks, and Iran have not even sent an official.
Yeah,
so what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very confusing. To say that a deal, you know, there's a potential deal which would sort the situation out and bring about regime change. Well, who are they dealing with that would agree regime change? When obviously that is so sort of baked into how Iran is at the moment. Should we talk to Philip Ingram, who's a former senior military intelligence officer? Good to see you, Philip.
Good morning.
What are we to make of what President Trump is saying? Because we're getting no confirmation from anywhere else that there's anything on the table at all.
Well, yes, there's a degree of confusion. We've got the Iranians apparently saying that there's no negotiations going on with the United States, but we've got some Iranian official going to Pakistan, and the US are sending, I understand, Steve Witkoff, their Middle East negotiator, to Pakistan to talk to someone. So something's happening, and you know, we wouldn't necessarily expect to know in the public domain exactly what's going on while things are fairly sensitive. But at the same time, the United States is building up even more troops in the region. It's got a couple of Marine expeditionary units steaming towards the area, and they've just landed numbers of troops from their 82nd Airborne and 101st Airborne troops in the area. So that's suggesting further pressure being put on Iran, whilst Donald Trump seems to have reined back on his direct attacks.
Philip, how likely is it, how feasible is it that President Trump could actually run the Strait of Hormuz with Iran?
Donald Trump says lots of things that are practically very difficult indeed. He's just been bombing Iran for almost 4 weeks. The Iranians don't have a coherent government at the moment. They've got the rump of the government that's been destroyed by US and Israeli attacks. So sitting down and coming up with some form of agreement to be able to run the Straits of Hormuz means that someone has to have complete control over it. And if Donald Trump says he's going to help run it, he would have to have complete control over it. And that's the issue. There's real difficulty in doing that. From a military perspective, it's extremely difficult given the number of asymmetric routes that Iran can use to try and stop and interdict international shipping. And it's the insurance costs. It's the potential threat to those civilian sailors that are operating the international shipping going through the Straits that makes it impossible for them to get through.
Whether people agree with the action being taken in the first place or not, Philip, how dangerous is it, or how wise is it, not to finish the action, not to complete this? I guess we don't know what victory looks like from the Trump perspective.
If there's a rump of an Iranian regime that's left in place that is linked to the old regime and will act like that horrible little cancer cell that the doctors have not managed to get, the cancer will grow again in the future. And therefore it is extremely dangerous for us, because Iran will then do everything it can in what we describe as the grey zone to try and seek revenge. And it is the largest global sponsor of terrorism, and that's something that we should be very worried about. However, Donald Trump is not going to let that happen unless he can have a degree of control over it, and neither are the Israelis. So we have to recognize that military action, war, is diplomacy by other means. It's good that there's talking going on at the moment. Let's hope that something comes out of that talking, but we're not going to know until we see the results. And I am skeptical that these initial talks are going to result in anything. I can see it's going back to bombing at some stage, but eventually this will finish with negotiations.
OK, Philip, really good to get your analysis. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Interesting. On the news of this yesterday, oil prices dropped by 13%. Massive drop.
Yeah, that says a lot, doesn't it, when you've got markets lingering on every single word that the President says. Yeah.
Anyway, look, it's 7:20. Let's have a look at some of the other key stories this morning.
And family members of a school caretaker killed by Valdo Callicane are due to give evidence to the Nottingham attacks public inquiry. 65-year-old Ian Coates was fatally stabbed more than an hour after students Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Coomer, who were both 19, were killed in the early hours of June the 13th, 2023.
A jury in California has ordered Bill Cosby to pay more than $14 million in damages to a former waitress who said he drugged and sexually assaulted her more than 50 years ago. Donna Motzinger said he gave her wine and a pill that left her unable to move after picking her up in a limousine back in 1972. Cosby denied the allegations.
And at least 66 people have been killed in a military plane crash in Colombia. There were 125 people on board the aircraft, many of whom were soldiers. The cause is under investigation, but the country's defence minister described it as a tragic accident.
Right, should we get a check on the weather for you today? Here's Sophia.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet across parts of the north, with colder air following behind. Let's take a look at the details. Southwestern parts of the country will remain largely dry, however it will be cloudy and increasingly breezy as the day goes on. Still on the mild side, with highs reaching the mid-teens. Further east, across southeast England and East Anglia, and we may hang on to some brightness from time to time, with highs possibly reaching 15 Celsius. For Wales, it will start dry, but rain will spread into northern parts throughout the afternoon, with winds also strengthening. Into the Midlands, and we will see some early brightness, but cloud will build throughout the day. Most will stay dry until after dark, with highs reaching the low teens. Northern England, though, will see an increasingly wet day, especially for parts of Cumbria, with some heavy rain developing here. Windy too, especially near Irish seacoast and over the hills. Moving up to Scotland, our morning rain will give way to a mix of sunshine and blustery showers. Mild initially, but colder later, with the showers turning increasingly wintry. Northern Ireland will also turn colder later in the day, with spells of rain moving across the country. Some brightness developing in between rain, with brisk winds throughout. The colder conditions will then begin to sink southward this evening as the rain moves towards the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, does the government have a hold, or is it tackling anti-Semitism in this country? We're going to be talking about that next.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Every week there are stories that shape the national conversation.
Well, to be discussing that.
And on Saturday Morning Live, we break them down.
Is that true? This is fascinating, isn't it?
The politics, the headlines, the debates everyone's talking about.
And the questions that you want answered. Do you think that was a legitimate attack for him to make?
What led you to set up this fantastic movement?
You know what? It's a great question, Olivia.
So what are you waiting for?
Your weekend starts here. Saturdays at 10 a.m, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, time for the Great British Giveaway now, and spring is here, so it really sort of opens your mind up to what you could do with those nice weekends.
Get away, have a staycation, and this might help.
Yes, a brand new four-berth camper van worth more than £67,000 plus 25 grand in your bank account as well.
Yeah, here are all of the details that you need to win this fantastic prize.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth camper van worth over £67,000. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this camper van is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. Plus you can drive it on your existing licence. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. In total, this prize package is worth over £92,000. So make sure you secure your place in the draw. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck!
OK, best of luck to you on that one. Should we turn our attention to what on earth is going on in this country with anti-Semitism? We know it's been on the rise. There's been this real sense of it being on the rise. And then we've had this arson attack in Golders Green in London. We've had the Home Secretary saying anti-Semitism is increasing in this country. So what's going on? What do we expect anybody to do about it? How do we tackle it? What's causing it? I mean, there's so many questions here. But has the government got a grip of all of this?
Well, let's speak now to former Labour advisor Paul Richards. Very good morning to you, Paul. We heard from the Home Secretary yesterday saying this is the oldest hatred rising up again. Everyone's saying the right words. We're talking about additional funding and we're talking about high offences. But is enough being done to actually tackle the root problem here?
Well, good morning. I mean, firstly, just to condemn that awful attack on the ambulances. I don't know what kind of animal attacks an ambulance and thinks that's a legitimate process, but we'll hopefully see a police investigation that leads to arrests of the 3 hooded men that were seen running from the scene. You're right, of course, you have to have these protective measures like, you know, shatterproof glass in schools and gates and fences around communal organisations, schools, synagogues, schools, colleges. But that's not the solution. The solution lies in tackling the underlying anti-Semitism of left and right in our politics, which sees this Jewish community in our country as a legitimate target. And by the way, you know, I was looking at the numbers, reminding myself that there's only 290,000 Jewish people in the UK. It's a tiny population, 0.5% of the population, and yet getting this enormous increase in attacks, 3,700 attacks in the latest figures, according to the Community Security Trust. So it's a terrible situation and more must be done. I'm glad the government acted quickly yesterday, but I think we need more funding and we need more of a debate about what the root causes are.
Yeah, right, OK. But in a way, you're following the same path, Paul, aren't you? Because you're saying, you're glad the government's done something. We need to tackle the core problem. But how? And the idea that the government is tackling the core... I mean, you can say, well, it's successive governments, but this is the government we've got now. How are they tackling the core problem? When we're seeing things we're seeing all these things going on, but we've also seen within their tenure Palestinian protests, which have been, in some cases, and some individuals on those protests, been absolutely openly anti-Semitic and no action taken.
Well, and on the other hand, you've seen Palestine Action activists being arrested en masse in Parliament Square for declaring support for a terrorist organisation. Today, for example, to give you another example, there will be an announcement, I believe, later about making it easier to sack anti-Semitic doctors and NHS staff from within the NHS. So Lord Mann has done a big inquiry into the NHS and anti-Semitism, and Wes Streeting is going to make it easier to get rid of those people, because we don't want anti-Semites working in the health service and discriminating against Jewish patients. So that's another step forward. But, you know, it starts in the schools, it starts in the communities, talking about anti-Semitism. The government's funding more money for Holocaust education so we can understand the the nature of the Holocaust and the anti-Semitic lies that led up to that horror, and so that we can start this open conversation about what anti-Semitism is and isn't. And like I say, on the left as well as the right. I mean, my party, hangs its head in shame for those years when we were chock full of anti-Semites. Most of them have left or been kicked out. Many of them ended up in other parties on the left, the Green Party, for example, and they have a responsibility too now to deal with this issue. And on the right, the more sort of familiar, perhaps sort of neo-Nazi anti-Semitism that we know more about. But, it's this ongoing vigilance and dialogue and education is what we need to root anti-Semitism out, the oldest hatred from our society.
OK.
Paul Richards, we're out of time with you this morning, but thank you very much for joining us on GB News Breakfast.
I think we should probably just say off the back of that we don't know about anti-Semitism within the Green Party itself, and that's something we'd have to try and speak to them about and get their response to that. We can't just take that as read, that there are anti-Semite elements within the Green Party. We just need to be a little bit careful about that. But clearly, I think a lot of it is to do with the fact we're forgetting about what happened in the war. I know it's been around since before the Second World War, but that was a wake-up call to an awful lot of people. And I think we're forgetting that it's time passing on that one.
And maybe it needs to start in schools. I mean, I've heard that being mooted as an idea that actually every trainee teacher hears about anti-Semitism, how to spot it, how to call it out in classrooms, and then to actually build it into the curriculum.
But how do you
talk about the war, to talk about the Holocaust, remind people of the evils of anti-Semitism?
Yeah, all right. I mean, fair enough. But why do you need training to spot it? It's basically racism, isn't it? It's racism based on religion. So it's not hard to spot. And you'd call it out if it was anything else. If it was something negative against black people, you'd call it out. If it was against Asian people, you'd call it out. If it was about... To be fair, if it was about someone being a Muslim, you would call it out.
I was speaking to a Jewish friend yesterday who was saying it doesn't get called out because Jewish people are white. It's not seen as a form of racism. It's not called out in the same way. They don't feel defended in that same way. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say.
We've got rules in this country. They should apply to everybody and not pick and choose. Anyway, we've got Paul here in just a moment. He's going to be looking at all the sport, including a viral golf fail. I don't know what it is, but I'm looking forward to finding out. It's in a couple of minutes.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A55 over the Britannia Bridge, a temporary speed limit of 30 miles per hour is enforced in both directions until further notice due to maintenance work. In Birmingham, the M6 southbound between Junction 8 and Junction 6 is heavily congested, with delays of around 50 minutes expected during peak hours. In Northamptonshire, the M1 northbound between Junction 16 and Junction 18 has one lane closed because of a broken down vehicle. Meanwhile, on the trains, Avanti West Coast is experiencing major disruptions at Glasgow Central, and Cross Country is reporting significant disruptions on some routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's Sports Time. Paul Coates here with us. Morning.
Good morning.
Should we talk Ben White?
Let's talk Ben White, shall we? Ben White is back. So Ben White, Arsenal defender. See, in the World Cup in 2022, he was in the squad and then he left for personal reasons. And often, when you leave, you're thinking, is this something bad? Is something bad happened to his family? Is something happened? You tend to worry and think, what is the reason why you would walk away from a World Cup squad? It's never truly come out. Nobody's actually said, this is what happened, this is exactly the reason. But it's said that he clashed with Gareth Southgate's number 2, Steve Holland, and they'd argued, and he said, well, enough of this, I'm off, and I'm not going to play for England again. But guess what? He's back again.
He's back.
So Thomas Tuchel has said over the last probably 6 months to a year that he would be welcomed back with open arms should he choose to come back.
Is he good enough?
I don't think he is. I mean, he's OK, and he hasn't played for Arsenal very much in the Premier League this year, but then you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, who is not getting the call, who you thought might be the one that would be brought back. He's over in Real Madrid at the moment, but apparently Thomas Tuchel, I don't think, likes him very much. I don't think he's a big fan. So Ben White is back, but should he be allowed to be... I mean, if you walk... It's one thing if you quit something, maybe you quit your job and it's not working out for you, but when you're chosen to play for your country, no matter what, should you actually walk out and say, I'm not going to do this because it doesn't suit me because I don't like the other guy that's there?
Yeah, throwing your toys out of the pram.
It is a bit. You know, maybe things were worse than we imagined and it was very difficult for him. I don't know. But for me, I'm not sure I'm a big fan of the fact that you say, I'm not playing for England, and now, actually, you know what, I will.
Is it going to put you off buying the New England kit?
You know what? It could well do. Or it may be the price. It may well be the price.
I can't get over this.
It's so expensive.
Well, they have different shirts. So the New England kit, hopefully we can have a look at this. You know, we could go through the fashion, how it looks with the new V-neck, etc. It's just, there we are. That was the launch of the New England kit. So a match shirt, well, how much? Have you seen how much it is?
90 quid.
135 quid. Because the thing is, they released 2 different versions. You can buy the match kit, which is exactly the same as the England players would wear, so it's a different material, where you can wear one that they call the stadium shirt, which is not quite the quality which is available at $89.99. Why you would want the actual match one, but Nike do this, so you can have it exactly the same.
I can see
135 quid.
But they're just upping. I mean, I'd love to see how they justify the price of that.
It's insane, isn't it?
What was it? 120? Was it gone up 10 quid or something?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But the thing, I just really would love to know exactly how much these things cost to make
Probably
in
about
the first place.
£8.50.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I think we've got my old favourite England kit. This was the first one that actually was different, and that was back in '75. There we are, and that was the red and blue stripe. This was like revolutionary when Admiral brought that out.
And that was tuppence halfpenny.
That was tuppence halfpenny. It was 4 and 6 is what it was. I don't even know what that means, but there it is. I think that was it looks like me. Oh no, it's just the
What, the very odd pecs?
The very odd pecs. But they did have odd pecs back in 1975. Finally, let's have a quick look, though. John Daly, over 50s tour, playing golf.
Oh, yes.
Two-time major champion. Had a bit of trouble playing in the over 50s tour. This is in Arizona. Watch him play the shot, so it's looking very uncomfortable. Watch him. Hey. And he was never, ever seen again.
So it slid right down that.
Slid right. There's down that fella going in after him. That's the caddy. So
well, you've got to go after him if you're the caddy.
Exactly, you do. So he's then picked him up, and then he ended up a couple of birdies on the rest of the round. So you've got to be very careful if you're going to play a ball from a slope like that. It wasn't a bad shot, but there we are.
He's off, and that gully's 100 feet deep.
It was even longer than that, still going. There we are. Whoa.
Oh, loving it. Brilliant. Love it.
Quite the worry.
Love it.
Good.
All right,
I do. I'll just pick the ball up and put it down.
Thanks, Paul.
Pleasure.
Right, still to come, we've got the rise of Britain's sickfluencers.
Whatever that means.
No idea, but we'll find out with Charlie Rowley and Chloe Dobbs in a moment.
But first, here's the forecast across Europe.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A mixed picture weather-wise across southern Europe through tomorrow. We do have some showery rain affecting Greece. None of that looks especially heavy, and it is clearing away. Meanwhile, towards Italy, whilst tomorrow's looking largely dry, Storm Deborah is going to arrive overnight and into Thursday, bringing heavy rain, strong winds, even some significant mountain snow. Meanwhile, towards the Canaries and Madeira, well, it's been very unsettled recently. A shift in the wind direction does mean parts towards the southwest will be a bit more sheltered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The thought of war in space now, so forget the Middle East, forget anywhere else, we're going to space for war apparently. The thought of that could only concern the imagination recently of even film directors like George Lucas and Ridley Scott, but get this, a British billionaire, Richard Branson, has recently warned that war could actually be coming to a galaxy not too far away. Speaking at the Spacecom Expo conference, Branson has given an eerie warning that Britain must prepare for war in space and emphasised the need to dominate the industry for the sake of national security. Branson said that we could, quote, hopefully work with the Americans, but be ready to stand on our own 2 feet. With war very much raging on Earth, is speculation about a potential war in space just a sign of an overactive imagination, or is it possibly a reality? Well, with me now is my favourite space enthusiast expert, Andy Lound. Andy, good to see you. We've still got wars going on Earth. Why do we need to go to space and start scrapping it out?
Good morning. There's always been an issue of warfare in space since the first days. I mean, if we want to take it simply as spy satellites, that's a way of actually looking down on the Earth, part of the open sky program, which Eisenhower wanted, which is why he was keen for the Russians to get the first satellite up, because then he could declare open skies to spy on each other. And in fact, the idea of using weapons in space is by no means a new idea. If we go back to 1975, Almaz 3, a Salyut space station, the Soviets, as they were at the time, actually had a cannon mounted on the space station in order to test the use of a cannon in space, which they might be able to use, therefore, to take out satellites and other spacecraft. It was tested when the crew came back, for obvious reasons, because it could be dangerous with the recoil. But they did actually test a weapon out in space.
GB News, the People's Channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're going through the papers this morning with Charlie Rowley and Chloe Dobbs. Morning, you two. Charlie, let's have a look at the Times front page. And Tehran is linked to the arson attack that we saw yesterday on 4 volunteer ambulances.
Absolutely. And look, the moronic act of targeting ambulances is on its own a story worth sort of talking about. But the fact that it's targeted specifically to the Jewish community, where anti-Semitism that you were talking about earlier on throughout the programme is on the rise, we know that. But the fact further that now it is being investigated that these attacks could be linked to Iran, effectively, where we are...
Well, could be.
Could be.
We need to just be a little bit careful,
Absolutely.
don't we?
The investigation is ongoing and the Met haven't quite linked it there, and counter-terrorism police are looking into it. But if it is the case that that comes about, it, again, I think will make people think... why we should be doing, or why the Prime Minister at least should be doing more to support the cause to get rid of a tyrannical regime that funds international terrorism, that, where we have, the Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, all individual groups, splinter groups from and funded by Iran that want to do us harm, where over the last year 20 plots were foiled by MI5, now Secret Intelligence Services. These are sleeper cells, these are people that are in the country that want to harm our way of life. So we've got to do something about it if it is the case that this is another example of those people, as I say, that just want to do us harm.
Yeah, I mean, Chloe, people will say, and look, it's not an invalid argument to say, well, we put ourselves at more risk by getting involved in things, which is what the Prime Minister says we've not been involved in offensive action. But as I say, these plots against us were happening anyway.
Yeah, I think that people feel as though Keir Starmer has given a free pass to the IRGC. Well, not just Keir Starmer, but previous governments as well. We've previously had quite a soft stance to Iran because we wanted to keep trade open with them. But we've got all of these IRGC sleeper cells in the UK. As Charlie has pointed out, we've had 20 plots foiled by our security services. So I think regardless of whether this was actually linked to the IRGC or not, it's clear as day that this group needs to be a prescribed organisation. And I think the Jewish community are absolutely furious. I think things start to get quite heated in Golders Green yesterday, where people were coming out on the streets after that attack on those ambulances because they are just fed up of hearing from Keir Starmer and the rest of the cabinet, oh, we condemn this attack, but they're not doing anything to actually clamp down on anti-Semitism and the rising terror threat in this country.
Chloe, let's stay with you, shall we? And talking about the war in Iran, meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer refuses to commit to a timeline to meet that defence spending pledge.
Yes, Keir Starmer really made quite a fool of himself in front of that liaison committee yesterday, where he was being grilled by the chair quite heavily, saying we need to be ready for war now. When on earth is that going to happen? And he simply cannot give an answer. And he just keeps on, as the chair accused him of playing party politics and swiping at the Conservative Party, saying, oh, look at the mess that they left us in. I'm not saying that the Conservatives did no wrong, but what the chair rightly pointed out is he said Winston Churchill and Thatcher had a mess to clear up from their predecessors, but they got on with it and they figured out a way to make it happen. And when we've got, I think we've got more money spent on the benefits bill and more money spent on just our debt interest payments each year than we do on defence. I think that I know that the coffers are tight. There's not much money in the purse, and Rachel Reeves hasn't got much headroom to do much. But I think this is a good case now with what's going on in Iran for them to say we actually really need to sort out the welfare spending so that we can divert more money at this time of crisis.
Well, it was only, I mean, it was $5 billion, wasn't it, that was meant to be saved by the measures that were then abandoned. And that was only a small slice. I mean, what did the Tories say they can save? 38 billion in total, the big chunk of that from welfare spending.
Yeah, I think it's between 38 and 41 billion, wow. So, the figures were high. But we need to get on top of it. The benefits bill is too high, and, those savings that really matter to people could actually go on things like defence, and it might then, if it was spent in the right way, it might not have taken 2 to 3 weeks to send HMS Dragon to go and help the people, British residents in Cyprus. So there we are, that's the state of our defences.
Charlie, let's have a look at the Mail, should we? And this I find particularly disturbing if it proves to be true. Some of our top schools actively discouraging applications from children with special needs because they think it could drag them down the results table.
Yeah, it's awful if this is true. And, you know, a survey was conducted where, you know, a number of head teachers and senior leadership teams within schools were saying that this is effectively the case. But, you know, let's take a step back. This comes on the back of this government removing the 20% of VAT on private schools. Now, when we talk about private schools, we're not talking about the Winchesters, the Eatons, where it's thousands upon thousands of pounds to send your kids there. If those people can afford it, they'll afford anything. Let's be honest about that. But it's the parents that specifically sent their children, a lot of whom had special educational needs, to fee-paying schools in order to get the best education, where it wasn't being able to be delivered in the state sector. That was removed from parents. Parents have now, because of that cost that would be impacted on them, would be looking to send their children to state schools where they won't be able to have the best educational outcomes because schools aren't prepared and trained enough to be able to look after or deliver that education for kids that have SEN needs. So the idea on top of that, despite £4 billion go into the state school sector to plug that gap, schools are now saying, oh, we're not going to take you on because we think that your child might bring our results down. It's abhorrent. But, you know, policy decisions have consequences, and this is just something that we're seeing, again, bearing fruit from, I think, Labour's politics of envy rather than actually just getting the job done.
You can see why the schools do it, because whenever you are exploring various different schools to send your kids to, I mean, the first thing that you look at is the results of that school. There's an information gap in that you can't know just from a browse of the website how good quality the teaching is at that school, and so you take their exam results as the best indicator of that. So, I mean, clearly these schools, they need to do more to communicate to the parents that how good the quality of their teaching is, rather than just focusing on those results so that they can continue to help those SEND students.
But you can also separate those figures out, can't you, and say, look how well we're doing with our SEND students, that they're getting, you know, and it may not be the top grades of others, but it's still under the very difficult circumstances, say our SEND students are doing really well by getting whatever those results happen to be.
I mean, it's potentially a case for the charity, because most of these schools, they've all got charitable status, for them to get involved and say you'll lose that if you're not taking in SEND students as you should.
And you only get that information by having, dare I say it, Ofsted. Now, however Ofsted is delivered, but having a proper, rigorous set of, framework to make sure that schools are delivering all of those outcomes, I think is good when some teachers want to abolish Ofsted, which I think would be a backward step.
Yeah. All right, you two. Thank you very much. See you later.
Do stay with us. We'll be speaking to the Shadow Energy Security and Net Zero Secretary, Claire Coutinho, just a few minutes after the weather.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet across parts of the north, with colder air following behind. Let's take a look at the details. Southwestern parts of the country will remain largely dry, however it will be cloudy and increasingly breezy as the day goes on. Still on the mild side, with highs reaching the mid-teens. Further east, across southeast England and East Anglia, and we may hang on to some brightness from time to time, with highs possibly reaching 15 Celsius. For Wales, it will start dry, but rain will spread into northern parts throughout the afternoon, with winds also strengthening. Into the Midlands, and we will see some early brightness, but cloud will build throughout the day. Most will stay dry until after dark, with highs reaching the low teens. Northern England, though, will see an increasingly wet day, especially for parts of Cumbria, with some heavy rain developing here. Windy too, especially near Irish seacoast and over the hills. Moving up to Scotland, and morning rain will give way to a mix of sunshine and blustery showers. Mild initially, but colder later, with the showers turning increasingly wintry. Northern Ireland will also turn colder later in the day, with spells of rain moving across the country. Some brightness developing in between rain, with brisk winds throughout. The colder conditions will then begin to sink southward this evening as the rain moves towards the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you around the world.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M74 southbound, between Junction 3 and Junction 3A, there are lane restrictions in place due to a broken down vehicle. Additionally, on the M4 eastbound, you will find heavy congestion stretching from Junction 27 at High Cross through to Junction 24 at Coldra. In Birmingham, traffic on the M6 northbound is slow between Junction 6 and Junction 7 as queues have built up, resulting in delays of around 30 minutes. And on the trains, both Avanti West Coast and ScotRail are reporting major disruption at Glasgow Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth campervan. This campervan is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. We'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. For another chance to win a campervan and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck!
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Good morning. The Chancellor lays out a plan to protect us from rising costs.
Yes, Rachel Reeves says she'll help working people with unfair price rises caused by the war in the Middle East.
Well, Downing Street also, of course, says de-escalation is the best thing for the economy to prevent inflationary price rises.
It could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
Meanwhile, President Trump announces a 5-day ceasefire with Iran, saying he'll run the Strait of Hormuz with Tehran.
The Home Secretary admits anti-Semitism is on the rise in the UK in the wake of the arson attack on Jewish volunteer ambulances. Will it make any difference?
The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground.
Elsewhere today, GB News can exclusively reveal that nearly 1,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel in just 6 days.
We'll tell you about the first men who are being tested in a landmark UK trial that could transform how prostate cancer is detected.
A farmers' choir brought together by Jeremy Clarkson is striking a chord nationwide. 2 members of the choir will join us later on in the programme to tell us how singing is tackling rural isolation.
And in sport, baseball continues after England decide not to sack their coach after a disastrous Ashes. Spurs consider another change in their manager, and Thomas Tuchel brings back a player who walked out on England.
Well, the fine sunny weather couldn't last forever. Today we're going to see cloud, rain and colder air pushing its way through. Stick around to find out more.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Right, shall we jump in with all the politics for you this morning? Because energy prices are a huge concern to all of us at the moment. Let's talk to the Shadow Secretary for Energy and Net Zero, Claire Coutinho. Good to see you this morning. And we're going to hear from the Chancellor today what she plans to do about helping working people. I don't know what she means by working people, of course. But I mean, what would you do? I mean, because to be fair, her hands are comparatively tied, certainly in terms of what she can do fiscally and economically.
Well, firstly, I think part of the reason that her situation is difficult because she's let inflation run out of control and her borrowing costs have been very high. So before we go to the taxpayer and ask for a big subsidy, because what it looks like they're going to do is subsidies for people who are on welfare, but we know the taxpayers are already hard pressed. We've set out plans, a cheap power plan, which would cut everyone's electricity bills by 20%, and it wouldn't cost the taxpayer a penny. We'd be taking off green taxes and levies and actually reducing the cost of people's energy, and that should be the first port of call. We know people have been taxed to the hilt and people are very, very squeezed at the moment. So before you go to the taxpayer again, I think we should be looking at cutting all costs we can, take out the fuel duty hike they're planning for the autumn, and take out that 20% of costs on people's electricity bills from those green taxes and levies.
Yeah, and you're also suggesting new oil and gas licences in the North Sea, saying that we can generate our own energy and create lots of skilled jobs as well, which all sounds great. Of course, the government says that anyone who... This is Ed Miliband, direct quote from him. Anyone who tells you that new licences in the North Sea will make any difference to the price that consumers are paying are not telling you the truth. Because gas is bought and sold on the international market, the price is set there. Now, is he correct?
Well, firstly, it will make a difference to the cost of living. He's flat out wrong. There's £25 billion of tax revenues that we could be getting from the North Sea that the Labour Party are getting from ordinary people. We know they're taxing pensioners, students, ordinary people on incomes of £30,000. These are all people who are paying higher taxes under the Labour Party. And instead of getting the taxes from them, we could be getting it from a thriving North Sea. There's also an important point, which is raising costs across the economy as well, is the borrowing costs that Rachel Reeves is having to pay because she is not earning enough and she is borrowing too much. So shutting down our own industry so that we import more gas from abroad with higher emissions, sending billions of pounds to places like Norway or Qatar or the US, instead of using our own resources in the North Sea, is completely mad, and it is sheer lunacy in a gas crisis. And that's why we're forcing a vote today in Parliament to say Labour have to take out their punitive approach to the North Sea. The taxes, the ban on new licences, the fact that you've got new projects just sat on Ed Miliband's desk waiting for sign-off when you could be getting some of those projects up and running in time for Christmas, supplying our own gas, providing us with tax revenue, providing us with jobs. It's completely mad, and they have to change course.
Then, because to take it away from the sort of unit price, barrel price, and talk about the general health of the economy is an interesting take. I mean, that's the one they're avoiding talking about. But can I take you back to your cheap power plan? Because and a lot of people will be watching and listening and cheering at the idea of having 20% off their energy bills. But if you're cutting green levies, that still leaves I mean, I'm not saying they're a good thing, but it leaves a shortfall then in the Exchequer's pockets, doesn't it? So how do we pay for that?
So we have set out a fully costed plan. One of the things we do is take out a carbon tax, which is just unnecessarily adding a third of the cost of the price that we pay for gas power. When gas power is high already, that seems absolutely bonkers. And the other thing is rip off wind subsidy. So some of it you would have to pay for, and we would do that by cutting subsidies for heat pumps and EVs. We think the best thing we could do if you want people to adopt electricity is to make electricity cheap. That's our position. And the rest of it you wouldn't have to pay for, because you're taking out a subsidy that you pay to wind developers, and we wouldn't pay that anymore because we think it's a rip-off subsidy which needs to stop.
We heard from the Prime Minister yesterday, didn't we? He was speaking to a liaison committee, he was answering questions on defence. He kept being pushed on when defence spending was going to get to 3%. He said he wasn't able to give that straight answer because he's dealing with delays, blaming those delays on the last Conservative government. Now, under the Conservatives, the MOD budget fell by 16%, this between 2010 and 2015. Real terms defence spending fell by 22%. That's between 2009 and 2017. Do you accept that the armed forces were hollowed out under the Conservatives, and that is one of the reasons why the country's in such a precarious position now?
Well, I noticed you stopped at 2017 because from 2020 onwards we said the world has changed, the world is getting more dangerous, and we started rapidly increasing defence spending. And actually that comment that you made was about defence spending that had happened over decades because the world had got more peaceful and everybody around the world was spending less. But that's clearly not where we are today. And we've set out plans to increase defence spending to 3% in this Parliament. You look at the axis of authoritarianism which is happening around the world, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, it is obviously crucially important that we are able to protect ourselves and spend on defence. And the big problem that Labour have made is they came into government, they made a choice. They made a choice to spend more money on welfare instead of spending on defence. I think that's the wrong choice. And they're also making other choices which are hurting the economy. You can see that unemployment's up, they've been taxing jobs, and they are not getting the tax receipts they should get from industry because they are shutting down industry like the North Sea. So those are the choices we need to make. We need to be realistic. The world is getting more dangerous. We have to think about our hard power, our industrial power, our economy, so we can make choices like funding defence.
OK. Claire Coutinho, really good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Anna Mikalova, political editor at the Times Radio, joins us now in the studio. Morning to you,
Good
Anna.
morning.
Good to see you. What did you make of what Claire Coutinho had to say?
Well, I think, they're talking about big plans. I think all of it sounds very good, but the obvious problem is always the government's instant attack plan on them, which is, why didn't you do it? They did have a lot of time. And when it comes to natural resources and net zero, the Conservatives pushed all of this and the change that we've got. And now, of course, it's no surprise. I mean, Claire Coutinho is saying that she signed off certain plans and that they're sitting on Ed Miliband's desk. Well, that's not surprising that they're sitting on Ed Miliband's desk. Ed Miliband never pretended to be particularly pro-oil and gas and fossil fuels in opposition. So you sort of think, well, maybe they should have planned for it and done a bit, action those projects a bit quicker.
It's an odd situation, though, that we find ourselves in because, and it's a bit like the defence argument, isn't it? That, you may be net zero. I mean, look, in a sensible world, if we could fuel everything in a renewable way and generate enough electricity, fantastic. It'd be cheaper, there'd be no emissions and all that. It's great. What a fantastic clean world to live in. But it's not where we are at the moment, and we need, as much as anything else, energy security, never mind the boost to the economy. So it's where it becomes very difficult for the Labour Party, isn't it? Because it seems like they're shoving their head in the ground.
Well, I mean, their argument very much is, they've got their own strategy on energy security, and in the last couple of weeks, ever since the Iran war started, all we've seen is Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband, literally doubling down, saying they're not just going to continue on their path, but they're going to go faster and harder in pursuit of renewable energy. And their argument is that that does make the UK, that would make the UK more secure. And they seem to agree with the Conservatives on driving down electricity prices. That's something Starmer said to MPs yesterday as well. But it's sort of Well, I mean, there are many, many detractors to this strategy. They think it's a mistake. Obviously, Claire Coutinho and the Conservatives are one of them, but lots of other people as well who think that it's frankly madness to be continuing down that path in the face of this crisis. But the government is adamant that this is the way to secure Britain's energy security in future.
We do have an issue in this country, don't we, with political short-termism. When we're talking about defence, especially, and with energy. We were talking earlier in the programme about the Lib Dems and the coalition saying they wouldn't invest in nuclear because it wouldn't come on board until 2020. Well, actually, that would have been really handy when we saw Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Does there need to be cross-party support when it comes to our energy moving forward?
I think with something like nuclear, absolutely. That's a really good point, because it does, all of these projects take so long. And also, one of the solutions that is mentioned by both Labour and Conservatives is this pursuit of small nuclear reactors, which does always sound brilliant. I remember getting a presentation about this a couple of years ago from someone in the industry. But the problem with it is the technology doesn't quite exist. So politicians can say, we really want to do this, but that is why it's longer term. That is why it's a little bit precarious and probably does need cross-party support and action. But, you know, the unspoken thing is, and one of the reasons Ed Miliband will be doubling down on his position, as well as the fact that he genuinely believes it and has obviously done a lot of work on that, is you've got the threat of the Greens. Labour is looking at the polls. They are concerned with the Green Party. There is absolutely no way that the answer in terms of Labour ranks at the moment on this is to go into fossil fuels.
Yeah. All right, Anna Mihailova, really good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Now, Donald Trump says he will run the Strait of Hormuz with Iran. This is the Strait of Hormuz he said he didn't need to police because America don't use it. But anyway, he's going to run it now with Iran, so he says, after announcing a 5-day pause on striking energy infrastructure.
Well, he claimed that progress on a peace deal with the potential for joint control of the key oil route and a regime change.
But we'll see what happens. I think there's a very good chance we're going to end up in a deal. And so we're giving it 5 days, and then we're going to see where that takes us. And I would say at the end of this period, I think it could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
So, a very good deal, says President Trump. This is where it gets confusing, because Tehran are not only saying there isn't a deal, they're saying there aren't any peace talks. So what do we believe?
Yeah, and what is going on? Con Coughlin, Defence and Foreign Affairs Editor at the Daily Telegraph, joins us now. Very good morning to you, Con.
Good morning.
What is going on? Are there peace talks happening? Are there not?
Well, the indications are that some kind of dialogue is taking place behind the scenes between the Americans and the Iranians, perhaps through intermediaries. This is what was going on before the war started, so there's no reason why those talks, those feelers can't be put out now in the middle of the war. But as you say, it's a very confused position. I personally find it quite hard to understand how the Americans and the Iranians could cooperate on maintaining security in the Strait of Hormuz, given the current level of hostilities between the two countries. And even if there were to be an end to hostilities, the bad feeling between the Americans and the Iranians, and let's not forget the role of Israel in all this, will continue. So the idea that we can suddenly sort of wake up one morning and there's a nice peaceful Strait of Hormuz, where all the world shipping flows freely with the help of the Iranians, the Americans, and everybody else, it does seem a bit like a pipe dream at the moment.
I mean, the one thing which really strikes me in all of this as well is the talk of regime change. Because, I mean, the idea of regime change in Iran through diplomacy seems extraordinary.
Well, it does. And given the level of hostility between the Americans, the Iranians, the Iranian regime, for nearly 50 years, the idea that the Americans can somehow appoint a new supreme leader or new head of the regime, whatever they're going to be called, does again seem rather off the charts. But clearly something's going on behind the scenes. I mean, when Trump took his military move in Venezuela at the start of the year and removed the Venezuelan dictator Maduro, he did say that America was going to be in charge of Venezuela and appoint a new government. And that's what they did. And they appointed Maduro's vice president. And of course, that's led to all kinds of speculation that there were people within the Venezuelan regime that supported the American intervention. But I can't say, I really don't believe there's anybody in Iran that's really, apart from the protesters, which, as distinct from the regime itself, who are actually supporting the American attempt to overthrow the regime. So, I mean, it's a very, very confused picture, which, of course, is what Trump specialises in and keeps everybody guessing.
Con, are we anywhere close to the end of this war?
It's hard to say. I mean, in military terms, and people forget the sort of military dimension to this sometimes because of the political flack, but the American campaign and the Israeli campaign, in military terms, has been very successful. A lot of Iran's military infrastructure, nuclear infrastructure, has been destroyed. Clearly, there's some elements left, and they can still attack Israel and Gulf states and even Cyprus, or perhaps even Diego Garcia. You know, the Iranians still have some gas in the tank, but they've been much degraded by the military campaign. And in such circumstances, any normal regime would want to try and end the war and find some kind of formula to end hostilities. But you know, the Iranian regime is a very fanatical regime, and they will fight to the last man.
Which begs the question then: why not finish this? Why not take all the gas out their tank before even sort of talking about these sort of pauses and ceasefires and all the rest of it?
Well, that is certainly the Israeli position, and Trump himself has said, I think he said it about a week ago now, he said, you know, I want to finish the job. I don't want to come back here in another 2 years and have to do it again. And let's not forget, when the Americans attacked Iran in June last year and primarily attacked their nuclear program, the Americans said they completely obliterated the nuclear program. And then here we are in March this year, and the Americans are saying we need to attack Iran to destroy their nuclear program. So, you know, on we go. But in strictly military terms, as I said, a lot of key targets have been hit. I think the holy grail for the Americans and the Israelis is to try and effect some kind of regime change and get a regime established in Tehran that is not so devotedly anti-Western and confrontational.
OK, Con, as always, really good to have your analysis. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Right, it's 18 minutes past... No, it's 19 minutes past 8. Time is flying. Let's have a look at some of the other key stories this morning.
A jury in California has ordered Bill Cosby to pay more than $14 million in damages to a former waitress who said that he drugged and sexually assaulted her over 50 years ago. The woman says the incident happened in 1972 after she was picked up in a limousine. Cosby has always denied the allegations against him.
At least 66 people have been killed after a military plane crashed in Colombia. There were 125 on board. Many were soldiers. The cause still being investigated.
And researchers from the Policy Exchange say so-called sickfluencers on social media are contributing to Britain's worklessness crisis. They say that thousands of users are sharing tips on how to describe symptoms and what to include in claims forms. In response, the government says it's working towards fixing the broken benefit system.
I mean, the idea that people, and they're making money out of it, of course, they're putting it on social media. The idea that you tell people how to con the system. I think it's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace when the rest of us are out working, paying our taxes, doing what you're meant to do, and there are people working out how to get money for nothing by lying about it. When that money, if you've got a genuine problem, a genuine disability, and all the rest of it, then the money should be there for them, not for people who can't be bothered to work.
Well, those sickfluencers need to be found, I think, on social media. And they need to clamp down on them. So they're not that sick, are they, if they're making...
I don't know why you can't...
money on social media?
No, I don't know what you
Economy
do.
system like that.
But I think it's a disgrace. I really do.
You'll have a view. gbnews.com/you'll say. Let us know what you think.
Right, let's have a look at the weather with Sophia Hill.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet across parts of the north, with colder air following behind. Let's take a look at the details. Southwestern parts of the country will remain largely dry, however it will be cloudy and increasingly breezy as the day goes on. Still on the mild side, with highs reaching the mid-teens. Further east, across southeast England and East Anglia, and we may hang on to some brightness from time to time, with highs possibly reaching 15 Celsius. For Wales, it will start dry, but rain will spread into northern parts throughout the afternoon, with winds also strengthening. Into the Midlands, and we will see some early brightness, but cloud will build throughout the day. Most will stay dry until after dark, with highs reaching the low teens. Northern England, though, will see an increasingly wet day, especially for parts of Cumbria, with some heavy rain developing here. Windy too, especially near Irish seacoast and over the hills. Moving up to Scotland, and morning rain will give way to a mix of sunshine and blustery showers. Mild initially, but colder later, with the showers turning increasingly wintry. Northern Ireland will also turn colder later in the day, with spells of rain moving across the country. Some brightness developing in between rain, with brisk winds throughout. The colder conditions will then begin to sink southward this evening as the rain moves towards the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, a major breakthrough in the fight against prostate cancer. We're going to find out more about that next.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Well, you talk about historical figures. There's a couple of historical figures sat right at the side of you. I think you should stick them pair on a £5.
We're not on a banknote.
Yeah, on a £5 note, a couple of rainbows on, and Bob's your uncle. I mean, it's just ridiculous, mate. I mean, Winston Churchill, one of our greatest heroes of all time, he led us to victory. If it weren't for Sir Winston, we'd all be...
Who was that? You can't see that on your screen.
Is that you, Dobby?
That's me, Martin.
He's got better teeth.
£5 note.
You look like...
Hey, they call you 30p, you're £10.
£10, yeah, I've changed my name now. Have we got a chopper in Nigel?
Hey, how come Nigel Nelson got the £50
That's inflation.
note?
Yeah, that's
excellent. It should be a euro.
No, I'm not on it. It's just not. It's again. It's
£10 chopper. There you go. Thank you very much, whoever did that mischief. And by the way, Nigel Nelson should be on a euro. People like Winston Churchill stopped real Nazis, and now they call people like you Nazis, because they've lost context.
What's his occupation? Birdwatcher.
Yeah.
Listen, mate, these people need to get a grip. You know, the people in my community are incredibly proud of our country. They're very patriotic. They sing the national anthem, they fly the flag, and when they see this nonsense and this bird twitcher, whoever it is, I don't know who he is, they get really, really angry. And I'll tell you what they do get angry with, when Nigel Nelson comes out with this nonsense about, you know, our stamps and our coinage changing every so many years.
Yeah, but
it doesn't matter.
We're not wiping out Winston Churchill.
You are.
No,
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're changing a banknote. It's not a big deal.
Why aren't you on this show defending Winston Churchill, saying he should be on these banknotes?
I will defend Winston Churchill.
Defend him right now.
He doesn't have to be on every single banknote.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
It's 8:26 now. A major breakthrough in the fight against prostate cancer could be on the horizon. It is one of the most prolific cancers in the UK, actually. We don't talk about it enough, I don't think. A UK-wide clinical trial called Transform could revolutionise how it's treated.
Well, the trial will assess PSA blood tests, MRI scans and genetic testing to determine which is the most effective way to detect the disease early.
Yeah, because if you leave it too long, it can become incurable. You get it early enough and it can be sorted. Early diagnosis relies currently on men often requesting a PSA test, even if you don't have any symptoms, and that does lead to a lot of regional inequalities and what you call a postcode lottery in outcomes.
Well, we're joined now by Dr Matthew Hobbs, Director of Research at Prostate Cancer UK. Very good morning to you, Doctor. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a bit more about this trial then, because we understand this is the largest prostate cancer screening study in over 2 decades.
Yeah, that's right. So we've had prostate cancer screening trials before, but the last big one happened about 20 years ago. And so, as you'd expect, science has moved on. The way we diagnose prostate cancer has moved on. So now's the time to test what we do now. But crucially, we think Transform is the most ambitious screening trial that we've done in the past, because it's also testing things that we might do in the future. So we're asking and answering multiple questions in one trial.
All right, so how does that work then? Explain what you're actually doing with this.
Yeah, so in normal clinical trials, men will be recruited and they'll either get something or nothing. In Transform, what we're doing is we're taking that combination of tests, PSA blood tests, fast MRIs and genetic spit tests, and combining them in different ways. So men will be allocated to one of 4 different arms. And that will allow us to do 2 things. It will allow us to deliver new evidence about how we diagnose prostate cancer now, but it will also allow us to test whether there are ways where we can find more of those aggressive cancers earlier so that we can save even more lives through early diagnosis than we could at the moment.
And yet, despite this being the most common cancer in the UK, it's the only one without still this routine screening programme. Are you hoping with this trial that you'll gather enough evidence to push again for this national screening programme?
That's exactly the idea. The reason Prostate Cancer UK has been so relentless in pursuing this, and that we've funded it to the tune of £42 million, with a lot of help from partners, I should say, is because men desperately need screening for prostate cancer, but they also need screening that saves their lives. It's no good just introducing screening that doesn't do what we need it to do. And the whole point of Transform is to deliver evidence in the next couple of years and long term that allows us to get to screening.
So, well, if you detect prostate cancer early enough, I mean, it's a lot of the stuff if you go for a PSA, if you insist on a PSA test, and I've done it myself, and it takes a heck of a lot of pushing just to get one. If you say I haven't got any symptoms, I mean, if you get it that early, is it much easier to treat?
It is, yeah. So prostate cancer found early, when it's still in the prostate, is very treatable. Most of those cases we can use radiotherapy, surgery or focal therapy to cure men. It's when it spreads outside the prostate that it starts to become a real issue, and the treatments are much harsher, the chance of survival is much less.
So why is it we're in a situation now, I mean, certainly with GPs, I guess I talk from my own experience, but I know it applies to other people as well, is that unless you are showing symptoms or feeling symptoms, they don't want to know.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. The problem we've got a couple of problems in prostate cancer. The first is that actually most prostate cancer in that early stage won't have symptoms, so absolutely do not wait for symptoms to start to think about prostate cancer. The other problem we have, and the reason we don't have screening, the reason we've got this disparity is some of those cancers that we find early never need to be found, and so they cause harm by treatment that doesn't do men any benefit. So we do hear from thousands of men who've got impotence and incontinence. So there's this really difficult balance for men to make their own decision about whether to get a test. And then you're right, sometimes they do have to push, and that causes inequality. And so what I'd say in the meantime, we're hoping Transform will give us the answer. It will give us a screening programme so that doesn't happen. But in the meantime, Prostate Cancer UK's website will give men all the information they need to take to their GPs to have that conversation about testing.
Really important conversation. Dr. Matthew Hobbs from Prostate Cancer UK. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm glad we talk about it because it's
we have
again,
to. We have to.
It affects so many people in the UK. We all know someone who's got an issue, and they do say if you live long enough as a man, you will develop prostate cancer. It's one of those sort of things.
So common, isn't it?
But it's and yet men don't like to talk about it, and there's all this fear about physical checks, which.
You don't necessarily need.
You don't necessarily. I mean, really, that's the thing of the past. But even if you did, so what? I mean, let's get a grip of ourselves. Women go through much worse, I think. But we just don't talk about it enough. And if you want a test, and you're entitled to have a PSA test if you are 50 or over, believe you me, try to get one is not easy.
No, but push for one.
Yeah.
Because you are entitled.
Yeah, you're entitled, so you should have it. I mean, I had it. I kicked and screamed, I did one, and then said, well, it hasn't shown anything. Oh, good.
Yeah, good.
Good. But I'm allowed to have it.
Yeah, of course you are, yeah.
Anyway,
let us know what you think.
Right, should we cheer ourselves up with a giveaway?
Let's, I think we should.
How about a prize worth £92,000?
Yeah, a full-berth camper van and 25 grand in tax-free cash. Here are all of the details that you need.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000, and it could be all yours in our very latest Great British Giveaway. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. You can even drive it on your existing driving licence. Plus, it comfortably sleeps 4 people. Make sure you don't miss out on the biggest prize package of the year so far. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck.
And if you win, feel free to offer us
a ride in the camper van.
A ride in the camper van.
We'll do breakfast from the camper van.
Oh, I'd love to.
That'd be nice.
I'd love all of that.
Let's go up to Scotland, the Highlands. That'd be nice.
Should you? But if you are heading out in a camper van today, here's your traffic and travel update.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M74 southbound, there are restrictions between junctions 3 and 3A due to a broken vehicle. The M4 eastbound is slow from junction 27 at High Cross to junction 24 at Coldra. In Birmingham, the M6 northbound is congested between junctions 6 and 7, with delays expected to ease after 9:45. In Kent, the M25 anti-clockwise at junction 1A has lane closures due to a broken vehicle. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major disruption at Glasgow Central, while Cross Country reports delays between Southampton Central and Bournemouth. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, 2 words for you. Breakfast, birthdays. You don't want to miss it. That's next.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every week there are stories that shape the national conversation.
Well, to be discussing that.
And on Saturday Morning Live, we break them down.
Is that true? This is fascinating, isn't it?
The politics, the headlines, the debates everyone's talking about.
And the questions that you want answered. Do you think that was a legitimate attack for him to make?
What led you to set up this fantastic movement?
You know what? It's a great question, Olivia.
So what are you waiting for?
Your weekend starts here. Saturdays at 10 a.m, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We are thrilled to announce at 8:38 that GB News Breakfast has once again been nominated for Best News Programme at the Trick Awards, even though this lovely picture doesn't show Paul Coyte or Aidan McGee.
But we are going to work on that and put them in the little sun, which we're going to put behind us, like the Teletubbies. Anyway, we've won this award for the past 3 years, and of course we couldn't have done it without you, our very loyal viewers and listeners. So we are so thankful for everything that you do for us, but we are going to ask you, if you think we deserve it, to vote for us again this year. And if you want to do that, you do it like this.
Yes, you scan that QR code, which is that orangey thing on the left of your screen if you're watching on TV. If you're listening on the radio, remember this, poll-trick.org.uk, and you can have your say, and thank you very much in advance. But Paul, he might not be on that picture, but he's here in the studio.
And you're in our hearts.
I know, you should be in the picture.
Brendan McCullum, Bazball, the cricket and the Bazball, which was basically
rubbish.
Well, it didn't work very well, did it, in the Ashes? No. It's named after him because that was his nickname, or still is his nickname, Baz. And it's swashbuckling cricket, and that's how he wants to play, and it hasn't worked out very well. And then there's been an inquiry or a review of England's bad performance, and really it's just saying that changes need to be made on and off the field, little more preparation, more intense warm-ups, not much drinking, by the way, at night is not a good thing. Curfews of about midnight.
Oh,
so
midnight.
They don't get
nice and early.
Yeah, well, it's nice and early. You can start about 5 o'clock, can't you? And then you just move it backwards. But anyway, how it's going to go, we don't know. It's just state the bleeding obvious, really. Higher standards required on and off the field. So there we are. We're going to be absolutely fine when it comes.
Doesn't mean anything, does it?
This is interesting.
Yeah, go on.
The Community Shield, which is the curtain raiser to the football season, which happens in August. It's always the winner of the FA Cup who will play the winner of the league. So it'll be Man City will play the winner of the FA Cup, whoever that will be. I'm just kidding. So then they've had to move it from Wembley Stadium now to the Millennium Stadium in Wales. It's always at Wembley Stadium. Do you know why?
No.
No.
Because The Weeknd is playing there. They've got a gig.
Oh.
They've booked it out for a gig, So they've decided, I thought surely it would be the other way round, that if you've got a band that turns up or an artist that's saying we want to play at Wembley, they go, OK, well, you've got to fit around these big games, but no, it's the other way round now. So the weekend takes precedence over the...
Yeah, what is the stadium for? Is it it's a performance stadium occasionally used for football?
Well, it seems that way now.
Money talks.
It does, and that's what it is.
It's a shame.
Steve Cooper, former Nottingham Forest and Swansea City boss, is now in charge of Brøndby in Denmark. Now, there's a little controversy. Are you wondering where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Now, he is Welshman. He's a proud Welshman and has been accused by the Bosnia-Herzegovina manager, Sergej Barbarez, of dropping his Bosnian defender, Benjamin Tahirovic, whilst he's playing with Brøndby. The reason is he's saying that he's dropping him because he's trying to help Wales, even though the player plays for his club. Do you follow me? Wales are playing Bosnia in the playoff for the World Cup on Thursday.
So he's dropping him from his own club.
Yes,
because it then diminishes his chances of playing for the national team.
This is where I start getting a bit lost, because if he was dropping him, then you'd think that maybe that would be good to rest him.
Yeah.
But really, he seems to be dropping him. But the manager of Bosnia-Herzegovina is saying that it's not good what he's doing. He said, Benjo has told me some things that are hard to believe. It has something to do with the coach's origin, because he's from Wales. When your coach wishes you, but not your national team, good luck, it leaves room for thought.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
I think it's good of him to say, listen, good luck to you, but I'm a Welshman. Obviously, I don't want your team to win, but good luck to you.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Good sportsmanship.
Get over yourself.
Yes.
Anyway, good luck, Wales, playing Bosnia-Herzegovina on Thursday. The winners will play either Italy or Northern Ireland for a place in the World Cup.
Very good.
Right.
That's what I have for you.
Should we do a very quick breakfast birthdays?
I got some breakfast birthdays.
Oh, good.
OK, some sporting birthdays. First one we have...
Play along at home.
Arsenal defender William Saliba. So how old is William there?
William is 28.
William is 28?
I was going to go 28, so as a result, I should go 27.
It's 25. William is 25. Just a kid. Let's go with a slightly older one. A legend there, Archie Gemmill. Archie, this is when footballers looked in their 50s, even though they were in their 20s at the time, with respect to Archie, but that was kind of the way in the 70s. He scored the greatest goal for Scotland against the Netherlands or Holland in the 1978 World Cup final, played in the 70s, played for Derby County, played for Nottingham Forest.
83.
83 for Archie.
77.
Oh, 79. Right in the middle. Let's go with another one. It's the former...
Sorry, Archie.
Former
Sugar.
chairman of Tottenham Hotspur, Lord Sugar. Lord, don't call me Sir Alan. Don't call me Alan. I'm Lord to you.
Lord.
There he is.
Alan. Sugar.
How old is he?
85.
Oh.
No, he's younger than that.
That's worse than not calling him Lord, that is. I was very upset with you.
He's 71.
79.
He'll do the pointy-fied thing.
Point all he likes.
Pointy thing. 79, did you say?
I said 79.
I said 71.
Yeah.
79's the right answer.
I changed it to
79. One more, last one.
Mary Berry.
The lovely Mary Berry.
I love her.
Played up front for Sheffield Wednesday back in the 1960s. How old is she today?
She is 91.
Oh, I was going to go 91. But
You can both go 91 if you want.
I'm going to say 93.
Because the book that came out last year was Mary Berry at 90, so 96 is the answer. No, 91 is the answer. Happy birthday.
So I win.
Mary Berry. Well, yeah, it was your draw, wasn't it? Well, was it one each?
Yeah, but his was a second attempt, so...
Oh, that's true. All right, fair enough.
On that one.
OK.
Fair enough.
You're meant to be in charge of these things.
No, but he's
I
always...
lose interest after a while. OK.
Anyway.
Get out.
I'm so sorry.
Right, we've got the papers heading away in just a moment with Charlie Rowley and Chloe Dobbs.
But first, here's the forecast across Europe.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. A mixed picture weather-wise across southern Europe through tomorrow. We do have some showery rain affecting Greece. None of that looks especially heavy, and it is clearing away. Meanwhile, towards Italy, whilst tomorrow's looking largely dry, Storm Deborah is going to arrive overnight and into Thursday, bringing heavy rain, strong winds, even some significant mountain snow. Meanwhile, towards the Canaries and Madeira, well, it's been very unsettled recently. A shift in the wind direction does mean parts towards the southwest will be a bit more sheltered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Pork pies. They're widely regarded as a classic British snack dating back to the 18th century.
But Tesco's recent survey found that a third of youngsters have never tried the savoury treat.
Outrageous. So the retailer have now released a limited edition pork pie-inspired sandwich. Here it is here. We've got one procured to try it out. But the idea of this is to give the youngsters of today all the chance to enjoy this nostalgic British classic, even if it's not a real pork pie, but a sandwich that has been flavoured as such.
That's a load of processed meat flattened together, like a slice of it. There's a slither in there with a bit of cheese. We're joined now by the owners of Fuller's Butchers and Farm Shop, Steve Fuller and Lily Fuller. Welcome.
Basically, we make our own pork pies. We sell about 400 a week, and yeah, I mean, to me, I'd say they're becoming more popular. Actually, I mean, they're a great snack. You can take them on a picnic. You've got the nice crispy pastry and the nice juicy pork meat inside. So
now I can see you're holding up those pork pies. We have got pork pies flavoured sandwiches here. I wonder if it's time to do a bit of a taste test. Perhaps you could bite into your pork pie there in your farm shop. We'll have a bite of this Tesco sandwich and see how it all feels. It's not going to be great for the listeners on the radio, but here we go. I think they've captured the essence of one. This is an excellent I can't speak with my mouth full of sandwich.
You ate too much, that was where you went wrong.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Right, let's take you through the papers with Charlie Rowley and Chloe Dobbs. Can we talk about this? We saw it in the papers this morning, didn't we, about vets and
yes.
a crackdown on prescription fees.
Yeah, so I mean, this is good news for
Good
Ellie
news
and I,
for you,
and
Chloe.
Stephen as well, because you've got a dog as well. The competition watchdog has said that they must cap prescriptions at £21. I think anyone who's taken a few trips to the vets knows that that is where they really cream you, is by insisting your dog needs all of these medicines and you're not completely sure if they're telling the truth, but they seem to rack up a heck of a bill. And often what's happened is you've had lots of vets that they look like they're independent vets, so there's this facade of competition, but actually they're all part of the same big umbrella company, so they're able to all rack their prices up
How
high.
can they do that? Because they're going to cap it at £21 for the first medicine and £12.50 for any additional drugs, but some of these drugs presumably will cost more than that.
Well, I mean, this is for prescriptions, which is presumably regular things. So potentially they can still rip us off on the one-off medicines, potentially. I'm not sure if the CMA are doing anything about that, but at least for regular prescriptions, presumably if you're dog or cat as an ongoing health issue, you're not going to be able to be ripped off week after week after week. But I mean, it's still quite a bit of money. Initially, the CMA proposed that it'd be £16, but the vets have managed to get their way in the negotiations to make it £21. So I don't think the vets would be a cheap place to visit anytime soon. But it's just like a
I don't understand how it's going to work, because the medicine we buy for the cat is... you get it from the vet, and it's something like £140. So we actually get a prescription, which still costs us 20 quid, and then get it off a website, which then costs us £60. So we save money that way. But if we now get it for £21, I just don't know how that's going to work.
Well,
I mean, brilliant if it does, but I just don't see how.
Certainly makes you think twice, doesn't it? I mean, if you're, looking to get a dog or a cat, as I am. I was inspired by your little Monty.
Were you?
I was.
He's very popular with the viewers, isn't he?
He is very popular.
Yes, yeah. No, and so
You'd like him?
I thought, well, I'd love to meet him.
Yeah?
But if you're thinking about getting a dog or a cat just because, you're alone in the flat...
It costs me a fortune.
It's
Mine will only eat the super expensive butternut box.
Oh, really?
150 quid a month because he's got such a big appetite.
We bought a big box of that. He wouldn't touch it. I know, it was just that's an load of money down the swat. But they're so finicky, aren't they? Very finicky. Can we have a look at... Chloe, it's in The Guardian. It's all online as well. These dogs that went missing in China.
Yes, I mean, it's quite
love this story.
A beautiful story. So there were dogs that were pets that were stolen. A butcher wanted to take them and sell them at a dog meat market. So stole these dogs, put them in the truck, and the dogs managed to escape from the truck, and they banded together. They created a circle around this injured German Shepherd dog, and they walked together for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And managed to make their way back home, which I thought was pretty amazing. The thing is, it's normally cats that are amazing at finding their way back home because they're always out venturing, whereas dogs, they get taken in the car or to specific places by their owners. They don't know a huge area. The fact that they were able to navigate themselves back home by themselves is phenomenal. It's like a miracle.
It's a lovely story.
Apparently they were led by this beautiful little corgi.
Yes.
So lots of different types of dogs in this group, but it was the corgi that led the way.
Oh, it's a bit like you, Charlie. After every show, we put Charlie in the back of a truck and drop him off 15 miles away, and he still finds his way back.
I do.
But anyway, we'll try. We'd have to make...
I wondered where that was going.
Here we can see them.
Here we are.
Here they are. And look at the corgi leading the way.
Oh, so proudly.
Good on them. I mean, what? Honestly.
Lovely story. People are saying it should be a film, needs to be an animated film.
I'm sure it probably will be.
It is something out of the movie. The fact that they managed to figure out their way back home, not getting run over on the road as well, is really remarkable.
Oh, it's a great story, that one.
Charlie, what are sickfluencers?
Well, sticking with online trends, a number of people that are now coaching, if you wanted to claim benefits, if you wanted to cheat the benefits bill. We've got sickfluencers. These are online people telling us basically how to cheat the process. So what you've got to do to put the right things down on the paperwork, the symptoms that you should have, all the diagnosis that will get you onto a benefit, which I think is appalling.
I sort of think they should be prosecuted with something.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what.
And online companies have got to take it down. But, we keep talking about the benefits bill on the rise and, I think 100 people a day are being signed off for anxiety and all the rest of it. No doubt at the taxpayers' expense. And they could have picked this up from just people online coaching them through the process.
And what this report said is that actually a lot of people, they're cheating the system by using ChatGPT now to perfect their answers on the benefits forms to make sure they tick all the boxes and get what they want.
What is the world coming to, honestly?
I just think the problem is, a lot of this is down to mental health days lost and all that sort of thing. And I think the problem is it diminishes the problems when people actually have real problems. Because it means you're very dismissive of anyone who says, oh, I'm suffering with my mental health. And actually, they really could be. And it's just these other people pulling a fast one that spoil it for those people who are really suffering.
Yeah. Chloe, Charlie, thank you so much for your company today. Good to see you both. Thank you.
Right, let's have a look at the weather for you with Sophia Hill.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet across parts of the north, with colder air following behind. Let's take a look at the details. Southwestern parts of the country will remain largely dry, however it will be cloudy and increasingly breezy as the day goes on. Still on the mild side with highs reaching the mid-teens. Further east across southeast England and East Anglia, and we may hang on to some brightness from time to time, with highs possibly reaching 15 Celsius. For Wales, it will start dry, but rain will spread into northern parts throughout the afternoon, with winds also strengthening. Into the Midlands, and we will see some early brightness, but cloud will build throughout the day. Most will stay dry until after dark, with highs reaching the low teens. Northern England, though, will see an increasingly wet day, especially for parts of Cumbria, with some heavy rain developing here. Windy too, especially near Irish sea coast and over the hills. Moving up to Scotland, and morning rain will give way to a mix of sunshine and blustery showers. Mild initially, but colder later, with the showers turning increasingly wintry. Northern Ireland will also turn colder later in the day, with spells of rain moving across the country. Some brightness developing in between rain, with brisk winds throughout. The colder conditions will then begin to sink southward this evening as the rain moves towards the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M74 southbound between Junction 3 and Junction 3A, there are restrictions after a broken-down vehicle. The M4 eastbound is slow from Junction 27 at High Cross to Junction 24 at Coldra because of congestion. In Peterborough, the A47 westbound between the A141 and the A1139 is closed after an overturned vehicle, with delays. On the trains, Avanti West Coast has major disruption at Glasgow Central, and cross-country is disrupted on some routes, including between Southampton Central and Bournemouth. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The Chancellor lays out a plan to protect Britain's from rising costs.
Rachel Reeves says she'll help working people with unfair price rises caused by the war in the Middle East.
Well, Downing Street says de-escalation is the best thing for the economy to prevent inflationary price rises. Well, earlier we spoke to the Shadow Energy Security Secretary, Claire Coutinho.
Labour have to take out their punitive approach to the North Sea, the taxes, the ban on new licences, the fact that you've got new projects just sat on Ed Miliband's desk.
It could very well end up being a very good deal for everybody, as good as if we went all the way and just literally annihilated the place.
Meanwhile, President Trump announces a 5-day ceasefire with Iran, saying he'll run the Strait of Hormuz with Tehran.
The Home Secretary admits anti-Semitism is on the rise in the UK in the wake of that arson attack on 4 Jewish volunteer ambulances.
The government has on its hands a situation in which the tolerant, decent Britain that we all thought we knew has turned into a Britain where people turn up in the dead of night and burn ambulances down to the ground.
Elsewhere this morning, GB News can exclusively reveal that nearly 1,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel in just 6 days.
And a farmers' choir brought together by Jeremy Clarkson is striking a chord nationwide. We're going to talk to 2 members a little bit later.
Well, the fine sunny weather couldn't last forever. Today we're going to see cloud, rain and colder air pushing its way through. Stick around to find out more.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello and this is GB News Breakfast. Should we get into our top story?
I think we probably should this morning. There's an awful lot of politics and stuff going on today, and some of it's quite complex because there doesn't seem to be any sort of straightforward answers to a lot of it. Let's start with Rachel Reeves, should we, who's going to unveil plans to protect households from rising prices linked to the war in Iran.
Well, the government says it will give regulators stronger powers to tackle profiteering and stop companies exploiting the Middle East crisis.
Well, the move follows a Cobra meeting with the Chancellor expected to set out the plans in Parliament today.
But will it be enough to make a difference to British households?
Let's talk to Anna Mihailova, who's political editor at Times Radio Morning.
Good morning.
It's a case of what she's got that she can actually lay out, because, I mean, whether you say it's her fault or not, her hands, economically at least, are pretty tied.
Oh, it's such a difficult situation. And note that, so they had this Cobra meeting yesterday, but both the briefings beforehand and since have focused on this issue of profiteering. So ministers keep wanting to talk about this idea of nasty companies hiking up prices and rogue providers, and that they're going to tighten regulation to tackle this. But obviously, the main reason prices will be going up will not be because of profiteering, but just because of the crisis. It's just in this whole issue, there's very little they can actually say because the last thing they want to do is create a consumer panic. And they have to weigh their words so carefully. They have to reassure people without spooking them, so while also planning for every contingency. So of course in that meeting they would have discussed many other much more scary scenarios, but the one that they are content on talking about is this regulation, which is sort of neither here nor there in many ways.
What does the Chancellor mean when she says she's going to help working people with unfair price rises? Who are working people?
It's the $1 million question, Ellie. Look, we have had this definition of working people change repeatedly. When it came to, first it was what most viewers and voters thought when they heard that in the run-up to the election, it's people who work. But then in the run-up to the budget last year, it was very clear ministers didn't actually mean that. They meant people who work but earn under a certain amount. And what Keir Starmer has been clear about is he thinks support should be targeted, partly because he says he is acutely aware of just how much it cost Liz Truss to give that wholesale bailout to every household. That was £40 billion, £40 billion that probably was overspent at the time, and 40 billion that obviously the government doesn't have now. So they're looking at targeting it. The problem with targeting any kind of support is you always end up with people who unfairly lose out.
Yeah, that's that cut-off line.
The cut-off line just creates unfairness and creates that situation where, you know, the next day after they announce any sort of targeting, there will be households who say, well, hang on a second, I'm really struggling, especially going into the winter, which the government has been clear they are planning for. They're looking at autumn, the autumn price cap. That's what Keir Starmer said yesterday. So I think any idea that this could be over quickly or that the economy could quickly recover is frankly for the birds now.
We had the Conservatives on in the past hour talking about drilling the North Sea now, U-turning on new oil and gas licences. They say it's not only going to provide cheaper energy, but also provide lots of jobs as well for British people. Now, the government says that, of course, oil and gas is set by the international markets. It wouldn't actually save people money. So what is the truth in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, so both sides, there is definitely a dividing line between those two parties on this. And both sides have very compelling arguments. I think the problem slightly is, without being an oil and gas expert, it's actually very hard to understand who is right and who's wrong on this. But the government is adamant that that plan of drilling the North Sea oil will not help households in the immediate. They say that's because the price of oil in particular is set by international markets and much bigger producers. Obviously, that's true, but you still have a lot of people, including in the industry, who say not only would it help shore up the UK's reserves, but also there's also a job creation element here.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was interesting. Claire Coutinho, I mean, sort of conceding that point on the individual pricing, but he's talking about, A, it's energy security, but B, she claimed it would bring in 25 billion in tax revenues, which is a lot of money that we need.
Absolutely, but then you can also say, why didn't Claire Coutinho do it at the time? She was Energy Secretary not that long ago.
Well, it's a fair point. Do we need to move past that, though?
I think we do. I mean, we, you know, obviously as reporters don't need to move past it, but the government, when they constantly say that, it doesn't ring, you know, it rings hollow to a lot of people when you see ministers coming on and constantly saying, oh, over the last 14 years, because people want to hear what they're doing now. And also there's that real risk of both parties just sounding the same. But it's definitely true that the Conservatives, you know, had a lot of time and put a lot of energy into pursuing net zero and pursuing renewables and not shoring up their energy security. Claire Coutinho's answer to that to you was, oh, well, the world was a lot safer. But the whole point is you plan in a safe world for a crisis.
OK, Anna, thank you so much.
Now, the Prime Minister has condemned what he calls a deeply shocking anti-Semitic arson attack in North London.
Yes, 4 volunteer ambulances belonging to a Jewish community charity in Golders Green were set alight, and loud explosions were heard as the oxygen cylinders inside those ambulances set on fire.
Yeah, so it's like, what do we do next about all of this, with the Home Secretary already saying anti-Semitism is on the rise? Our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, is here. Morning, Mark. We're getting a lot of words from politicians from all parties on this, but no clear action as to how you tackle the root problem here.
No, and I spoke, in fact, to the campaign for anti-Semitism yesterday that said they're sick of all the emollient words from politicians turning up and expressing their solidarity with the Jewish community, when the reality on the ground is that they have to have guards, the Community Security Trust, guards, volunteers that are there at places of worship, that take their children to school. No other community in the UK has to have that level of protection because of the threats they're under. And throughout the day, many people came up to us, many of them GB News viewers, and very thankful for the coverage that we give. But they said, look, you know, we're British. We're part of the British community. Yeah. We're proudly British. One man told me, he said, look, we've been here hundreds of years, multiple generations. My grandfather was a proud sailor in the Royal Navy, fought in the Second World War. But he said, now I'm at the end of my tether. I'm really concerned where this country is going. And seriously consider leaving and going off to Israel. It's the only place that he thinks actually would offer some relative safety. Given what Israel faces from its neighbours, that is saying something.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, so Mark Rowley, was speaking to that Community Security Trust last night, addressing them. He spoke about the rapid growth in recent years of Iranian state threats, called it grave. He said that hostile state surveillance activity, 20 disrupted plots, recent attacks on the Iranian diaspora, those that are against the regime, really mounting up to a very significant and serious problem. And you've got at the moment an investigation strand regarding the attack on the ambulances that's looking at a possible link to the Iranians, a claim of responsibility by a newly formed group that's also claiming responsibility for a number of attacks in Europe. That is being seriously investigated. This morning we've heard from Lawrence Taylor, Assistant Commissioner and Head of Counter-Terrorism Policing in the UK. He spoke to the Today programme this morning and spoke about actually these wars in the Middle East that are playing out in our streets. Let's have a listen.
OK, Mark White, our Home Security Editor, thank you so much.
Have we not got that clip? No, we haven't got that clip. Sorry, Mark.
If I had £1 for every time I've thrown to a clip that never exists, I'd be a rich man.
You would be a very rich man, Mark. Never mind. We'll get it sorted. We'll get it sorted. In the meantime, we do have to very quickly tell you about the Great British Giveaway. It's a whopper this time round. Here's how you take part.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth camper van worth over £67,000. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this camper van is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. Plus, you can drive it on your existing licence. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. In total, this prize package is worth over £92,000. So make sure you secure your place in the draw. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes are closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck!
Yes, good luck. Now, do stay with us, still to come. We're going to be speaking to Michael Shanks, not the Canadian actor who you thought we were speaking to.
From Stargate SG-1.
Exactly. He is instead the Minister of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, but we have got some very important questions to ask him, don't we, about our energy bills and what is going to be done about them.
Yeah, it's a big one. That's coming up in a couple of minutes.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless.
I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to Breakfast. It's 16 minutes past 9, and I'm very pleased to say that we're joined by Minister of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, Michael Shanks. Very good morning to you, Michael.
Good morning, good to be with you.
Can I ask you first about Iran's capabilities, because Israel claiming at the weekend that Iran is now able to launch missiles that could hit London. Obviously, really concerning news. That was played down by Steve Reid at the weekend. But yet, yesterday, the Liaison Committee, the Prime Minister, wasn't able to set out a timeline of meeting 3% on defence spending, which you think would be the utmost priority of this government right now, considering what we're hearing from Israel. He instead blamed the Conservatives' inheritance, saying the country was not ready for war under their watch. Why is the Prime Minister not giving a straight answer on defence spending?
Well, I think he is giving a straight answer, but the answer is we need to increase spending, and that's what we've agreed to do in the budget and in the spending review period, to increases to 3% of defence spending. We did inherit the defence of the country in a real mess, not just the financing of it, but the organisation of our armed forces, a recruitment crisis as well. We're turning all of that around to make sure that we've got our armed forces in as fighting fit a place as they possibly can be. We're doing all that work really quickly, and that's exactly what the Prime Minister said at the committee yesterday.
Right, but we're now in a time of war, and you can't say when we're going to reach 3% of defence spending.
Well, first of all, it's important to say we're not in this war. We're taking part in a defensive position to make sure that British bases and interests are protected. But we took the decision, the Prime Minister took the decision, that we shouldn't enter this war. And I think that's been proven absolutely right. And the need now is to de-escalate this as quickly as possible. But look, the defence of the country is a government's #1 priority. We are increasing spending. We will hit that 3% target of GDP spending on defence. But it's not going to happen overnight. And it is really important that we get all of the infrastructure changes that are needed, building the infrastructure the Army and the Armed Forces need, but also turning around the recruitment situation that we've been facing for a long time. The Ministry of Defence is working on all of that. The nation's defences are in a good place, and they'll become even stronger in the years ahead.
Sorry, the nation's... Oh, well, we've got to move on to other things, but I mean, I think there's a lot to be questioned about that. Can I ask you, though, about where we are with it? I mean, it is partly obviously in the wake of what we're seeing in Iran, but obviously oil and fuel prices and everything going through the roof. The Chancellor's going to unveil some sort of support packages today, we understand, helping working people, though we don't know quite what that means. Why do that when you're still ruling out, and your boss, Ed Miliband, still ruling out the North Sea oil and gas, when the Conservatives tell us that could bring in, comparatively quickly, 25 billion in tax revenues, which this country desperately needs? Perhaps you could spend it on defence.
Well, look, first of all, it's worth saying that the North Sea is producing right now, and gas is coming ashore into the UK, and it will continue to do so. But the Tories presided over a decline in the North Sea. It has been in decline for a long time.
It doesn't matter.
The Tories had no plan for what the future of that would look like when they were in government. Well, I think it does matter because it's very easy to come out now.
They're not in government now, are they? They're not in power now. You are, and those in charge of organising this sort of thing say you could have these fields up and running with new licensing by the autumn.
Well, you put their position to me and I'm answering it. The lesson from this current crisis is not to double down on fossil fuels, because even if it comes from the North Sea, it doesn't take a penny off bills. And so it's a disingenuous position from a party that didn't learn from the last fossil fuel crisis when Russia invaded Ukraine, and we're all still facing the affordability costs that come from that. So the lesson you do learn from this is, how do you protect households now? We've done that by the price cap coming in on the 1st of April that will bring down bills, regardless of what's going on in the Middle East. That is protected. But it's also about how we move faster away from fossil fuels so we don't get into this cycle of crisis somewhere in the world driving up prices and ordinary working people of this country paying the price for it, which is what's happened so often in the past few decades.
Well, right, global oil prices are an issue, but it will bring in, according to the Tories, 25 billion in tax revenues, and it also provides energy security.
Well, this is also the Tory party that says right now when there is a windfall on profits there shouldn't be a windfall tax, so I'm not quite sure I would trust their mathematics on any of this. And of course they were the government that presided over 70,000 jobs lost in the oil and gas industry, so there's really very few lessons we can take from the Tories on any of this. But look, our energy policy is very clear. We'll do everything we can to protect households now. That's why the price cap will bring down bills on the 1st of April, because of decisions we took. But we're also going to move further and faster to build nuclear and clean power technologies that get us off fossil fuels as fast as possible to protect households long into the future.
We heard the Home Secretary responding to the 4 volunteer ambulances at Golders Green being set alight. She was talking yesterday saying that the oldest hatred is rising again. Of course, she's talking about anti-Semitism. What is actually being done by this government? You're all coming out and saying the right things. There's talk about higher fences. There's talking about higher funding when it comes to security. But what is actually being done to tackle the root issue?
Look, it's a really important question. Look, it was an appalling attack, and I understand the ambulances today will be replaced, in fact, for that charity doing important work. But there's a wider question you rightly raise. We are investing in things like the Community Security Trust, but in truth, that's a representation of the scale of the problem, and so we have to do much more to root out anti-Semitism at its core. The Prime Minister did that in the Labour Party, a shameful period in our history, in a party that he turned a page on to root it out. We've now got to do that in the country. That's not easy to do, but it's really important we work together on it. And community cohesion is a really critical part of that. Communities working, praying, having faith side by side is the answer to all of these issues across our community. We need to do a lot more. We are taking action right now on funding, but there's a wider question about how we root it out of society.
OK. Minister, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
He was very good in SG1, wasn't he?
Britain's Newsroom coming up at 9:30. Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates are here to tell us all about it. Morning, you two.
Well, I mean, I think that's extraordinary to dismiss £25 billion in tax revenue, almost half the defence budget. Just say it's not worth doing. That's
incredible. Because if the Tories say it must be wrong.
Yeah.
That's
the Tories did get it very wrong on energy, but we've got to start afresh.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just such a stupid negative approach.
And it's not just about bringing down bills, it's about energy security, energy self-sufficiency, all the things that some of the Scandinavian countries have got right and we've got wrong.
It's why I don't get the idea of saying, well, we just need to double down on what we're doing.
Exactly.
Well, maybe we need to have a fresh look.
Oil back above $100 a barrel.
Exactly, and look what the Americans are doing. They're now the world's biggest provider of oil. Anyway, lots more coming up on our show, as well as reacting to the Minister. But first of all, we've got your weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet across parts of the north, with colder air following behind. Let's take a look at the details. Southwestern parts of the country will remain largely dry, however it will be cloudy and increasingly breezy as the day goes on. Still on the mild side, with highs reaching the mid-teens. Further east, across southeast England and East Anglia, and we may hang on to some brightness from time to time, with highs possibly reaching 15 Celsius. For Wales, it will start dry, but rain will spread into northern parts throughout the afternoon, with winds also strengthening. into the Midlands, and we will see some early brightness, but cloud will build throughout the day. Most will stay dry until after dark, with highs reaching the low teens. Northern England, though, will see an increasingly wet day, especially for parts of Cumbria, with some heavy rain developing here. Windy too, especially near Irish seacoast and over the hills. Moving up to Scotland, and morning rain will give way to a mix of sunshine and blustery showers. Mild initially, but colder later, with the showers turning increasingly wintry. Northern Ireland will also turn colder later in the day, with spells of rain moving across the country. Some brightness developing in between rain, with brisk winds throughout. The colder conditions will then begin to sink southward this evening as the rain moves towards the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M90 southbound at Junction 6 is restricted after a broken down vehicle. On the M4 eastbound at Junction 33 near Capel-Lanilturn, congestion is building on the off-slip. In Stockton-on-Tees, the A19 northbound between the A67 and the A174 has a crash with one lane closed. In the city of Peterborough, the A47 westbound between the A141 and the A1139 is shut after an overturned vehicle. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major disruption at Glasgow Central, and cross-country is disrupted between Southampton Central and Bournemouth. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's pothole problem is spiralling. According to car repair company QuickFit, damage caused by potholes has cost drivers a staggering £1.7 billion. And here in Wales, many drivers say the situation is becoming a nightmare. The Welsh Government says it's repaired 171,000 potholes across the country so far. But here in the city of Newport, some locals are not convinced.
We have some really giant potholes in Newport, and I'm really concerned we could end up with some fatalities at night with people riding on motorbikes and cycles. So it's a real big issue for the people in Newport, and it's in a really bad state.
And it's not just city streets feeling the strain. In rural areas, residents often have no alternative routes, meaning potholes are almost impossible to avoid. Nigel Hallett is the chair of Michelstone and Vedu Community Council and says rural communities face a different set of challenges. Newport Council says it's paid out nearly £25,000 in compensation, but some residents say their claims are still being refused, including one woman whose husband was left with a £350 repair bill.
We tried to claim with the council initially. One letter went off, standard letter return to say no, you didn't tell us that the fault was there before you hit it. So we can't pay any claims out, so he's just back and forth constantly now.
The council says it understands residents' frustrations and has made road maintenance a major priority in its budget. Alongside a £6.6 million resurfacing programme already underway, it says more than £20 million is being invested in Newport's roads between 2025 and 27.
GB News, the People's Channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question, that's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name is Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Tuesday the 24th of March, live across the UK, Britain's newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, today the Chancellor will pledge to protect Brits from being ripped off by unfair price rises caused by the war in the Middle East.
But we'll see what happens. I think